T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, guys, another week. But before we get rolling into our guest today, let's go ahead and give a shout out to US Arc. We're only about a week away from California. Pomona auction is going to be amazing. Looking forward to seeing what goes into that one. Hopefully we'll see people in the attendance there, and always love a good US Arc auction. And on your spare time, guys, don't be afraid to go to the Facebook page. Got to check things out. Also, let's do the Super Show again. Really can't wait. Romney's a great guy. I've always had really great conversations with them. MJ's had me out again so I can hang out with the Patreon members. Really looking forward to it. So let's go ahead and get this rolling today. Benny Bender. I kind of like that. It's a good name. That's a hockey name right there.
It's a hockey name. Yeah, I'm from Wisconsin. Don't you know?
Perfect. Well, we've talked about Wisconsin because I'm from Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I know we've been. We're
out there.
Exactly. We're touching our brats together.
Yeah, cheese curds, spotted cow,
Johnsonville's,
yes. All right, that's enough Wisconsin talk. That's about all they got going on there. But no, William set this up this week, like you said ahead of time. Like always, I wait till last minute. But Benny, really happy to have you on. When we got to talk at the party down in Texas at Bill's. Really enjoyed our conversations. Really loved how you talked about incubating your eggs for Womas. Now, I will say I clearly didn't listen to you the whole time because I fucked up multiple clutches.
Told you.
Till the last one that year. But no, I think I mismanaged it. And what kind of boxes did you use for your Womas? Do you use the Sims or use this? No, it wasn't the Sims, man. It's like a Hefty.
Yeah, I'm using actually one of these guys. This little container store box, the little latches that got a little gasket that goes around there.
Yep.
Baby Herman tortoises just hatched out.
Oh,
look at those little guys.
I saw
Thank
that
you.
a few days ago.
Fun little guys. So yeah, I just use these boxes like this.
Yeah.
And just kind of came up with the idea that they need to be dry, but have some humidity in there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just do perlite on the bottom. You want me to get into this right now?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's just talk about it. We're going to talk about Womas first.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. So I bred Womas the first time back in, I think it's about 98, somewhere around there. And we got them from Rare Earth when they had those out and picked up a couple. I bred them. Had no idea what it was doing for incubation. Just did like the 1-to-1 vermiculite. Way too damp. Eggs look terrible. Some stuff still hatched, but still not really what I was looking for. And then kind of worked on that over the years and then took a break from keeping for a little while. Got back into it. And the first year I had Womas, of course, we had to leave for spring break, went to Florida. Didn't open the boxes that much, came back. Again, way too wet, just kind of drippy. So I'm like, I'm going to figure this thing out. So the next year I decided to do like a drainage layer was my idea. So I did dry perlite on the bottom, like a layer of dry perlite. And then I did 1-to-1 vermiculite mixed together like you normally would, did a layer of that, and then did dry perlite on the top. So the idea was if there's any water, it'd go down and then sit in the bottom, sit in the perlite in the bottom, but still keep moisture in that layer. And then give them something dry to sit on. And what I've heard from, I believe Tracy Barker was talking about it, I'm trying to read, you have to really space out your Aspidistes eggs. So when I put them in a box, I just, I get like a good 1 or 2 inches between the eggs and everything. Like when I did blackheads, I just did 3 eggs per box, where the one was like, if it's 7 eggs, I just did like 3 black eggs in each box and did 2 boxes separately. But it worked great. And I got 100% hatch rate for that. This year I've had 2 clutches, lost 1 egg so far. So, and I got another one ready to hatch this weekend for Womas. So I pretty much hit them out. And then I was breeding Kimberly Rock monitors too. I was like, I'll try with Kim's. Worked out great with Kimberly Rocks, same method. They hatched out just like that as well. So seemed to work pretty good. And it's nice and clean too, which I like. So it looks pretty.
Yeah, looks pretty. I think the mistake I made is I think my middle layer, I didn't make it damp enough. I don't think I was a 1-to-1 ratio in all honesty. I think I was still a little backed off. And yeah, I think what failed me is I was out of town enough that time of the year when I had those babies because, my busy season for shows is always early in the year. Right around now is when I stopped doing shows. So I come home and that middle layer would be a little drier than I thought. And I'd start getting wrinkly eggs. And, once I got to that point, I tried bringing them back. But that was my fault. Like I said, that middle layer is where I failed. But honestly, now I did get it right the last time that season. My last clutch, I set them up the way we talked about. I did get the humidity right. And honestly, that clutch was perfect, 100% hatch rate.
Nice. Yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention is I'll drill holes in top of the box too. Yeah. So I'll put maybe like 8 holes, somewhere around there, cover them all up with tape. I leave the center one cracked because of the gasket and like the pressure exchange. I don't know if that really exists or not, but so I leave like the center hole out just to have like oxygen, get in and out. And then about a month in, or like when I'm basically like 6 weeks into the incubation, I'll start peeling back the tape and just leaving the box and opening up the holes more and more. So I'll do that when I'm down to like maybe 2 or 3 weeks left to hatch. I'll just pull the tape completely off. And then I get in there, like every time I pass the box, I open it every day, wipe off any condensation, give it a little fan, kind of get this little air exchange, and then put the lid back on. So I'll get in there every single day and wipe those things down if need be. And I'm not getting a lot of condensation, but just enough where it seems like, something weird happens down here. I mean, Texas is nuts. Like we'll go from like 100 degrees to like 60 degrees in a day or something like that. So
with the incubation, have you tried variations of that? Like, what if you just did just the moist layer and then a dry layer? Have you ever?
That'd probably work.
Okay,
yeah, I'm sure it'd work. So the thing I think I thought of it when I was cleaning out the egg box one time, and I had it all vermiculite. Then when I got to, I dumped it, and all the vermiculite like dropped out. But then there's like a crusty bottom, not crusty, but like a real kind of muddy bottom layer where all the moisture just kind of sat down to. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem really good for like oxygen exchange at all. It just seems like it's kind of just a swampy area. So that's kind of why I put that bottom drainage layer on there to try to get like everything just open and suspended, almost like a suspended idea for that, without doing water, because that freaks me out.
With the layers too, you had like what, an inch, almost an inch of each or so, like a pretty thick layer. Because I know Ryan, I was talking to Ryan Young about incubation, and he said some he would do where he wouldn't make it as moist, and then some he would do where he would do a 1-to-1 ratio or something similar to that, and then just lay just a single dry layer, not even like a very thick layer, just enough to nestle the eggs down, but they're not actually touching the wet, moist substrate, but they're still snug in the substrate where they're not just sitting on top of it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that'd work fine too. And so like I know when I put mine in, I like a little bit thicker on the top, because when you get those eggs and you set them in there, they go down. I mean, an egg is like 2 inches tall, right? So you do, and I always half bury my eggs basically. So I just got to put them in and wiggle them back and forth and get them to sit nicely so they're cradled. I mean, it's got to be getting pretty close to that middle layer at some point, So, but I've heard of people doing completely dry too. I mean, I think it was Derek Roddy said he doesn't do any medium basically. He just raw dogs them, puts them on dry with no water. But he's in Florida. I'm in Texas and Austin. Austin's very dry and hot. So maybe that could be a difference in the humidity that he just naturally has there.
What about clump, like keeping them in a clump? Have you tried that yet, or have you always just separated them? I'm more of a clump person when it comes to python.
So if I had taller boxes, I'd probably just leave them clumped. The problem is you always get one that's a little bit higher than one that's higher. And next thing you know, your egg mass is getting up to like 4 inches thick, where it's so. And so I'm always weird. I don't know. I think about you're peeling them apart. You're kind of like, oh god, that looks a little thinner there. Man, these eggs are made to survive. When you get them out and you set them up, and I've had some, like Dave was saying, I get some that wrinkled. Like last time I had one wrinkle like a month in, and I was like, we'll see if this thing hatches. And I mean, it was like concaving on the top and the bottom. But like, there's hardly any egg left, and Perfect Baby came out just like the other ones did. So it was kind of interesting. And so I've got one on this clutch, so I'm curious to see how that one does as well. But they all look healthy so far and everything.
Yeah. How many Womas you breed a year, roughly? Usually a handful?
So I was just doing like 1-to-1 for a while, and then I started getting some good results. Those are from Justin Julander. We got them from Art of Valles. And they came in nice and orange, but man, they kicked out some crazy babies that had like a striping down the bottom that almost like a tiger band that comes down on the sides, but they don't touch the belly. It like almost comes to a point, like almost like a rib cage looking kind of pattern to them. And then they're bright yellow on the bottom and kind of like a brown orange on top. So I had those, and I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of roll with that look. So I started holding those back since 2019, I think is when 2020, somewhere around it, for like the last 5 years. So one of the females I held back just went this year, so I had her go. I've got another female from the same male but a different female that I have raised up as well. So she'll go next year. She's like weird because I was like, I held her back. I'm like, we'll see how she is, and she's like blowing away the other ones that I thought were really nice. Right. So she's turned out good. And I picked up a female from Keith McPeak who laid a clutch this year as well. And then I got one from, I think it's Imperial Reptiles in Florida. He had a bunch of adults for sale. So he was calling this one a hypo, like a hypo Woma. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, it's pretty. It reminds me of one I got from Summit Reptiles back in like 2000. They had like this really pretty, kind of reduced pattern, really faint kind of pattern on top and such, but really clean orange belly, or kind of like a coral belly. So I picked her up, and she laid a clutch this year too. So I got 3 clutches this year, 18. And the females aren't really big. Like my Womas aren't monstrous by any means. Yeah. Even my older ones aren't that big. I mean, I feed everything like small to medium rats pretty much throughout. And they laid, 5 eggs, 6 eggs, and 7 eggs. So got 18 total eggs so far.
Okay.
Which is good. I have a baby rack that fits 18 Womas. So I'm like, all right, nailed it. So knock on wood, the other ones hatch out. So that's about it. And then getting these this year, I was like, I mean, they produce some pretty wild stuff. I was watching them. We were in Vegas at a show, and they were babies were, I had a little camera on the egg box, and they were hatching out. And I was like, oh my God, what is that thing? Like, I'm excited to get home and see this. And they've got really light pattern, like super light cream pattern, but real dark, like bars on the sides and stuff. And they turned out really cool.
I don't know if I'm mistaken the babies and the adult female, but do you see Ryan Young's Womas? They almost had bleached heads. Like,
yeah, he's got some interesting like ones for sure.
Real bleached look, and I was just curious because I was like, that's interesting. I've seen people breed orange heads into black-headed pythons where they breed for that orange look. You know, defeats the purpose of the black head, but I haven't seen much in the way of variations with Womas. Maybe the black mask and stuff variations where I've seen some where they were connected, some where they were virtually gone, and then you get patternless and.
I've seen yellow and orange. Like I've definitely seen yellow, like yellow-headed Womas. Maybe Ryan's are kind of like that, where it almost like a silvery body with the yellow head. I've seen that variant, and I've seen a lot with the orange heads, obviously, as well too. And then there's just some brown ones. There's a lot of brown ones, man. People just made Womas to make Womas back in the day. It's like if you could breed Womas, you just made a Woma. You know, no one was selectively breeding them. And then now they are for sure. I mean, there's a lot of nice Womas being produced.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like you see a lot nicer Womas than you did years ago. Years ago, I was with you. It seemed like you saw, a handful of prettier ones, and then mostly of the dull, dingy colored ones. Now it seems like a lot of, or it's just the people I follow, or you and Lucas that make all the
right. That's true. We're trying. I know Dan Vermilia out on the East Coast, like he's produced some nice stuff. So he's got some nice animals floating around. I think it's Joe Carlson from Arizona Aspidades. Like he produces some nice ones as well, some really pretty ones. So yeah, it's exciting because they're really, when you breed like nice Womas together, you get nice babies like right away. You know, so if you can selectively breed them and you look at a trait and you're like, I want to pull these 2 traits together, I mean, it comes out pretty quickly, which is nice. So it makes it kind of fun to really try to selectively breed what you're going for. So I was trying to go for kind of reduced pattern, but more color, because it seems like most of the animals that are reduced patterns kind of dull out a little bit. So I want to try to pump color into them and some contrast. So kind of make it like a reduced pattern, but with like a strong contrast and pattern and with color. So that's kind of my goal on that one. So and see how it turns out. But yeah, it's hard, man, because you look at Woma, you can go I mean, I look at hundreds of them all the time. I'm like, ooh, that one might be it. And then you're like, it's not really what I'm looking for. And they take time to develop too. I mean, they'll take a good year and a half before you kind of really know what you have. Also, they kind of hit that window where you're like, ooh, that's cool. Because there's definitely some I sold where I was like, oh shit, that's one of mine, isn't it? it's you can definitely tell. Like Warren's producing some right now. Warren produced some nice Womas too. Warren Booth.
Oh yeah.
And looking at him, I'm like, I bet that's. He's like, yeah, that's the father's from you. I'm like, well, that's half my blood, which is better than all those blood. So it's like trying to pick up ones that look like yours without getting stuff that's related. Kind of you run into sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. But I always tell people with Australian animals in general, maybe outside of your patternless species, I mean, it's hard to, at least with pythons, at least too, where the babies tend to always be drab compared to the adults. Like, most people get used to the ball pythons where they're pretty right outside of the egg and for the first, 6 months of life compared to like a carpet, a Woma, Antaresia, where a lot of times they're born very drab and grow into their colors.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's you can definitely, when you've got a clutch of Womas, you can definitely pick out some good ones. And I was messaging with Casey Lazick the other day because he posted up one. I was like, did you just know that one was special? Because I mean, that thing's amazing. It's a beautiful Woma. Like, did you just know? And he's like, I mean, there's some I kind of had a feeling, and this one, of the three or whatever, the number I kept back, this one definitely just has taken off more than the other ones have, and I didn't know which one out of that group I didn't think this one would turn out like that, but it did. And I definitely going through these guys. I always kind of look for clear, like orange bellies, but then also like clean orange bellies without like a lot of like brown fleck in at all or any brown fleck in, or almost like a clear belly where you get some of those that actually have like no orange, but they almost look like they're clear, like they almost lacquered over. And that's the other ones I look for as well too for holdbacks, and then just clean patterns and clean banded. Like I'd love to get something that has bands that go all the way over the back, and then there's like cream, and then it goes to the next one that's fully over the back and stuff where you don't get the mismatch like a dark back on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we I think I put 3 female Womas to the side last year, and a couple of them did have the connecting pattern all the way across the back, and then the other one, of course, is more of that fade. And like what William was talking about earlier, just like when looking at the masks, some of them just had these beautiful orange heads this year, and their clutch mates had that band that crossed their eyebrows together, like pushed them up.
Yeah, the Eugene Levitts.
I thought that was a good sign. With like baby, we were talking like color maturity with like baby skinks. I always say if they've got a really bright tail right off the bat, they're probably gonna have some really great color throughout their bodies. So like some of the animals I put to the side, I pay attention to how colorful the tail is right off the bat. But no,
that's cool.
Go ahead.
Oh, is that for Northerns?
That's for Northerns. Yeah, I'm pretty much solely Northerns at this point. Nice. I've got nothing else.
I had a pair of those. I got babies from. It was cool. Those guys they're neat animals. I'd definitely, if I had more space, I'd like to get back into those again someday. So that's interesting. I never even thought about the tails, like looking at them. I was just like, holy shit, there's babies here. There's like, like I didn't really know that. I mean, I kind of had an idea how it works, like breeding wise and stuff. And like, they're going through the right steps and everything. And I was like, came out one day, I was like, whoa, this actually worked. There's, some babies. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those are great animals.
Oh, I love the species. And, when you're talking about with like Woma stuff, quality to quality stock is actually really taking you a couple steps forward. You're seeing results right away. I find the same thing with blue tongue skinks when you start line breeding some of the colors or just some of the characteristics you want to pass on. Honestly, you only have to do like one generation. You already end up with some really unbelievable animals you thought would have taken like 2 or 3 generations to breed them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, the Woma thing, I always talk about like when people come in the hobby and like, they're kind of looking to play with something. One thing that I thought was lacking in the Woma community that's kind of changing now is directions. There wasn't, I'm holding back this for this because I'm trying to improve on that. I'm seeing a lot more of that now, which is really awesome, which is going to become more of a, there'll be more of an appreciation for the species. Some people get bored when you're just doing the wild type of anything.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And it's just taking the wild type and making it prettier. It's not like hey, we're going to wipe out this whole. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There are some patternless Womas and such that are out there and such. But in general, you're taking the wild type and just making it better looking. It's like red tail boas or something, where you're like, let's just keep making Surinams cleaner. And if that's a look you like, some people just like the dirtier wild type looking as well too. So, but yeah, it's been fun. I didn't expect it, honestly. Like when I got my first clutch and they hatched out, I was like, wow, these are looking way better than I thought they were. So just kind of gave an idea, just kind of run with the direction and keep it going and try to push it further for those guys. But yeah, they're they're an interesting species in general. I mean, they're very unique. They're good feeders. You know, everyone's always afraid they bite all the time. Like my adults really don't much. My females are all crazy right now because they're all bouncing back from laying eggs. You know, where they'll just, you know, they'll come first, you know, mouth first at something right now. But as soon as they get a few more meals in them and stuff like that, they all mellow out really good, and no issues with that. But they'll get you sometimes as well too.
So I kind of wanted to get to talking about, like, how do you breed your Womas as far as feed cycling and all that goes? I was having an interesting conversation with Ryan we were talking about pygmy pythons. And he kept having, out of all the Antaresia, it's the one species I have the most difficulties with high percentage slug. And mine are a mix of both lines, you know, the Patterson and the Lasik line. So they're about as outcross as you can get with pygmy pythons. But
Sure.
they're just, I mean, even, you know, and Ryan works with just like, what is it? He works with Lasik line. And he had a perfect clutch from pure Lasik line. So his are technically more inbred than mine. So I figured, well, then what's going on here? Do I just have a bad, you know, just, you know, because occasionally you do run into those animals that are just bad breeders. I was talking to Ryan, and Ryan goes, well, how do you feed them? And I said, I feed them like, I don't know, usually in the fall months, and then I cut them off like all my other Australian stuff. He's like, how often do you feed? And I said, I feed about once a week till whatever, November, and then I cut them off. So I feed them maybe, I don't know, 12 meals, I guess, within that period. He said, man, you might be feeding them too much. He said, I've had females go off. I had females go off of just 4 meals, 4 rodents, and lay a good
That's
clutch.
A good investment right there. That's a good ROI.
Well, and then I was sitting there thinking, and I go, you know, I remember hearing that similar thing with Woma pythons years ago. And if you think about it, pygmy pythons don't necessarily get big enough to eat mammals. They typically eat rodents, even up to, not rodents, lizards and stuff, and reptiles up to adulthood. So I'm wondering if it's the same issue that people have had with like blackheads and even Womas and stuff, where it's this super high fatty mammals and you feed them a bunch of those, and then you're causing more issues than helping. You know?
Yeah. So I feed mine, like I was saying earlier, I feed mine a lot of times small rats and medium rats, which have now kind of changed a lot over the years, because smalls used to be pretty big. And so I used to feed smalls primarily because they were big enough to almost be like a medium. And then the industry shifted, whereas all of a sudden it's like your smalls are no longer medium size, your mediums are now small size. So I started feeding mediums just out of like, okay, well, this is more of a substantial meal. So when I feed, I don't like feed anything that's going to really leave a lump with them. Their heads are really small. It's kind of funny, you know. You see them take a meal down, and you're like, are they going to get this thing down? I mean, they you know, their heads are so tiny. It's like a king snake, basically, and they work it down. And then once they get it in, there's not much of a lump, and it took them a while to get that meal down. So as far as, you know, I feed my guys probably I kind of feed my animals just like if they're hungry for the most part. So I watch them a lot, seeing when they're moving around, if they start moving. Womas, like mine don't, you can tell when they're hungry, and it's usually like seasonal for those guys. But I mean, I was probably feeding like once during the summer I'll lay back, and I'll probably do like every other week, I'd say something like that during the summer. But mine always breed early. Like mine always seem to start breeding in October before I even start really cooling them down. So I start, once the male kind of starts going, I feed them all during that time as well. And I have actually fed them while they're gravid as well too, and they've still continued to eat. So, but I got away from like the once a week thing with most of my animals in general, and just kind of look for them and see. It's, you know, between the boas and the pythons and such, they're always, you know, either they're hungry, but there's times where you're like, man, they haven't moved much. They're not looking for anything. So I just, you don't get anything this week, and we skip it. So, but yeah, I've seen some big Womas, but like I was saying, mine are not that big. Even like my 10-year-old ones aren't massive by any means. But I've seen some big fat ones. I don't think that's healthy for any species. Yeah. And it seems like blackheads, it's definitely probably, I almost think it's almost like a bigger issue for blackheads. So I feel like they're probably eating bigger reptiles maybe than what Womas are in general, you know, where Womas may be having some smaller mammal size meals and so on. So, but my blackheads, I feed them less, but I'll feed them bigger rats, but less often for the most part.
I've been doing a lot more birds. I've been doing a lot of chicken and quail. So I'll do a lot more, especially with like the Womas, blackheads, and might even do it with the pygmy pythons this year if I can get like little button quail or something super tiny, because the pygmy pythons are so small. probably wouldn't be able to eat much more than a button
I was
quail.
going to say,
They're
yeah,
tiny.
if they can even get that much down, I wonder.
Yeah. Well, I have a big male that can get them down. He seems to like the little quail. But yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, those guys are quails. Quails the way to go. I was definitely doing birds for a while as well too. I found a lady local here on Craigslist, and she was processing for humans, and so she was like processing good quality, human consumption quail. And so I hit her up, and I was like, "Can you just kill them and freeze them whole, and just leave all their feathers on?" And she's like, "What do I like? What do you, I mean, I can, yeah, but why?" I'm like, "Oh, it's for reptiles." And she's like, "Yeah, I mean, I got to charge you the same I was going to charge you to dress it." And I'm like, "That's fine. I can commit to, a fair amount of numbers for me and stuff." So it's pretty funny. She's like, "I usually just sell these at my church group." And I was like, "Well, you got a reptile lover here to come buy your quail. And you don't have to do anything. Just freeze them for me." But yeah, good meals for sure. They get some good size too.
I would say I was doing those reptile links too. I was doing like iguanas and stuff like that. They're iguana links. I would feed to like the blackheads and the womas and stuff every so often.
Ricky Wheeler said that's what he does for his indigos. When he was breeding his indigos, he only fed reptilinks for a while. Okay. And he was getting good success with them, better egg production. He said they just looked healthier in general. Like he was just really happy with that for that species. So it makes sense for, especially your blackheads and womas being, feeding on reptiles quite a bit.
You're still working with indigos, or is that something you got out of?
I got all those guys. I liked them. I'd rather. So my rooms, my cages are my big cages are on the floor, and they were on the bottom floor. And if you have experience with indigos, it's a lot of cleaning. So like getting down, and they're also 30-inch deep cages too. So I've got 6x2 by 30-inch cages deep. And man, it's just trying to get down there and clean those things all the time. It just became a process. So we did a remodel in our house. So I kind of cut back on a few projects in general. But again, another project, I mean, they were cool. I'll definitely get into them, but it's, I had blackheads and they kind of remind me of each other for the most part. Indigos are a little more amped up. It's like their methed up cousin for the most part. They're a little crazy.
So this will be the first year I'm actually going to be working with blackheads. I picked up a pair of Xanthics about 2-3 years ago. They're already about adult size, and we just haven't really even thought about cycling yet. But they're definitely ready to go. This will probably be our first year. In your opinion, so like you're talking about your Woma season. So my Woma season usually starts late September, early October, but it's only for about 4 of my females, and it's always my biggest ones. And then my other ones honestly start building about 2 months later, and then I breed them. What should I do this year leading in with like the blackheads? Like, my cool down, your meal regimen. What would you suggest this like last year push?
So for mine, it's I have a small sample size. I just have a pair. And the first year she went, I think she was a little bit on the younger side, laid infertils, took a year off. And then the next year she laid a clutch. I got 6 eggs from her. And then this year took a year off. So it's it's I think that's her cycle or her pattern that she's on, which I'm like great for me. I'm like totally happy with that. Makes it, she'll do better long term. Hopefully she kicks back in and they produce another clutch this year, because that'd be great. But mine, I kind of just followed the typical holiday schedule. To basically feed up to Thanksgiving, take a break at Thanksgiving, wait for a few weeks, and then start cooling them down. And I think I took them down to about 68 degrees. That's pretty much what I do with all my stuff, like the rough scales. When I had those guys, I was taking them down to about 68. The Womas, I just take everybody down to the same temperature, about 68 at night, and then bring the heat back up during the day.
Would you, with your northern blue tongues, how are you getting those to 68, or are you going cooler with them?
I was pretty cool with them. I had them in the garage actually, so I think they definitely hit some much cooler weather than that. So they had the old house I had, like my little reptile room was in the garage, and it was actually like an insulated room. And then outside that, I had the blue tongues out there. So, and they had heating elements and stuff, but I'm sure there's nights that they got, quite a bit cooler than that.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I was, I've had some swings in temperatures over the years because I've bred them in different states and different conditions. So the northerns, I've never really had like a set number. I think even when I lived in Buffalo, New York with them, I'd bring them in my bedroom in the wintertime in like 28-quart bins and have my window open at night. And gosh, I bet you it got down to the 40 some nights in that room. But I've also had years with the blue tongues where I've actually just did light cycling where honestly I was kind of like low 70s, high 60s and just kept the lights off the entire time and had good years doing that. I find like low 60s has always been a good spot for my blue tongues. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put these blackheads for that perfect 68. I might have to set up like their own little area, bring them back to the home. I don't think I'll have a spot in my shop that I'm in now that I'm going to be able to bring down those kinds of temps.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd probably breed just even doing like the food cycle and even just giving them enough of a drop. Like, what do you keep them at for temperature in general?
I keep them at the bottom of the rack. So right on the floor. I think the hot spot at the very bottom of the rack probably varies from like 86. I don't think it hits 90 that often, but I may have like 88, 90 days. Ambient temperature in that room is usually around 78, but I think at the floor they're getting a couple degrees cooler. Right now the heat finally just hit us for the first time in Missouri this entire year, and like everything's sweating. Like my building is just running air conditioner 24 hours a day right now. I think the meter or the thermostat on the wall says I'm at 84, but I've got temperature gauges all over the place. With the air blowing almost all day long, it's staying at about 80 degrees right now.
Okay. So, yeah, honestly, yeah. So if you cut the heat at night during the fall and winter months, how cool do you think that room gets? Do you think it still stays that warm? Like 78 at night?
In this building in the wintertime, it's really hard to keep it hot. So I'm actually going double time with warming things up. This summer, I'll be honest, it's broken up into two sections. I've got a lot of mixed species in the front half of the building. I moved in after my cool down, so I set the building up for I'm out of cool down. Now I got colubrids up front, I got the blackheads up front, I got the womas up front, I got my skinks up front, but then I got grow out Colombian boa constrictors out front. I got all my baby stock out front. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do this year. Honestly, I'm going to probably have to just pull species out of the building and put them somewhere else temporarily. Or I got to adjust everything from the back of the building to the front of the building so I can bring my temps in the back of the building down. It's kind of a shit show because I kind of all happened last minute. I got like 5 months to figure out the layout of my building, more or less.
Yeah, and then get everybody in and such. Yeah, so like I have a shed, so I've got a 10 by 12 shed that we built in the backyard, insulated and such. So a lot of times I just use whatever is going on in the weather outside. So if it's getting cool enough, I'll just set my room temp at like 68, and I just cut the heat off completely at night, and then just let it drop down that way, basically. And then during the day when I'm out here, I'll just, maybe heat it back up to 72, but I'll turn their heat panels back on so they have a basking spot that they can come out to and warm up. And I think, honestly, like you're saying, like Buffalo and further up north and such, I think animals just naturally cycle better in general, or maybe not better, but just easier. There's more like outside and pre-existing conditions out there from the winters and such, and all the different drops in pressure and everything else. Like, it just seemed like when I was up in Chicago, you didn't have to do much because it always, things just dipped off naturally for those months for the most part. So down here, it's a lot harder because also in like Christmas time, like I was going to cool some stuff in the garage once. So I'm like, it's 80 degrees out on Christmas right now. It's, that's not cool enough. So makes it a little tough that way. So, and I think that's where food and, like you said, food and light and some other stimuli could definitely come into play for sure. I know like Warren Booth and some of the other guys they're big food pushers for sure, where they really want to do like the food cycles more so than even the temperature cycles. I think Fuchs was mentioning that too. Like he doesn't even cycle his calibreds anymore, his clue breds. He just does food cycles on them.
Yeah, I honestly don't think food cycling is a bad way to go. I've done a lot of food cycling in the past with my boa constrictors. I bring it up all the time, and sometimes I'm ashamed of saying it, but like, I really love my ultrasound. Where we talk about how my Woma colony goes like 2 months apart from each other. Like that's all me just paying attention to my ultrasound. And, even in my building right now, I've had like 12 boa litters that hit the ground, but they all hit earlier than most people. That was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. I had 2 litters this past week, but they were kind of dud litters. One had 2 alive, one was a slug out, but that was when I introduced the male after I moved the whole collection to a new facility. And then I just had an ovulation last week from a boa constrictor. I have another one about to ovulate, and I'm waiting on 2 litters. And that's all because of the ultrasound. My season literally, I do my entire building except for the colubrids once a month, unless, of course, it's already been cycled out or whatever. And because of that, I've never really had a set season for the last like 4 or 5 years, to be honest with you.
Sure. No, it makes sense. So should we keep them going? I mean, the Womas are, they're 6 weeks apart from the females, and they sit right next to each other. It's kind of weird. You know, 2 are right on, 2 are a week apart, and then the other ones were 6 weeks apart. So it is kind of interesting how that works. And there's literally right next there, these cages right back here and the 4-footers. So basically touching each other, right next to each other, same heat cycles and everything, and went different times for those guys. So, which makes it hard on your male, depending on how many males you have. If you're going to keep trying to breed them that whole time, and you're not really, you know, you're just wasting his energy trying to breed them during the times that she's not, you know, being receptive during it as well. But they breed like crazy. So,
oh yeah, I can double check. I should know exactly my numbers in my Woma colony, but I'm probably like 7, maybe 8 males to probably like 12 to 14 females.
Nice.
I didn't know you had that.
It's a good collection.
Yeah, this past year was probably the slowest year I've had with the Womas. Again, we moved the entire collection like late December, early January, and where in some cases it kind of helped. Honestly, it was the breeding we did before we moved that I have on the ground now, babies. But we only did 2 clutches of Womas this past year. One clutch was probably like I think it was like 8 eggs, and my other clutch was 7 eggs, but she had 4 rolled out when I found it. Put them in the incubator. Everything was good for the first 3 weeks. 1 egg got moldy. Tried treating it. It died. Then the other 2 got moldy, and honestly, I was doing powder on them daily, wiping them off.
Yeah.
They both hatched. I didn't think they were going to make it, man. I thought I was fucked.
Interesting.
At one point, I even put like a styrofoam plate in there to get them off the bedding and had them on a styrofoam plate covered in powder every day, just working on them. Now, the babies were a little smaller when they came out of the egg, but I thought they'd be dead. They happened to make it.
Yeah, I had a weird one this year. I had a window in one of my eggs. I can't remember when it started, but I was like, oh, this shit doesn't look good. It was like a month in. So I actually just took the perlite and crushed up the perlite, then made powder out of the perlite. And then used that to cover it and made like, instead of using like a foot powder or whatever kind of powder, I just used that actually as like a binding agent and just spread that around, covered it up a little bit on that end, and weirdly the window went away. So I don't know what was going on. It was really weird. And then hatched with no issues. So I started just using like powdered perlite to kind of like, you know, fix little spots in eggs and stuff, and it's worked pretty well. I figured it was just going to kind of like absorb the moisture, if anything, and kind of create it as like a wicking agent and clean it up that way.
Yeah. So one thing, you know, over the years in the hobby, I feel like at shows, just any conversation I have with anybody when they say they do Womas, I feel like the first conversation is, oh, how do you do your eggs? Because, you know, you meet a million different people do a million different ways. You know, Mike Schultz, living right down the road from me, he likes the Sims boxes. He'll use Reptile chip in the bottom, suspend the eggs. He does well. I've heard sponges. You said you don't like them over water. I'm not a big fan of that either, but I talked to a person who did them over water, had them like at an angle the entire time, and the condensation just rolled around. And he said he had 100%. You always meet people who have 100%.
Right.
And, you know, I believe some of them. I know your method works. It worked for me once I got it down right. You know, I've had other methods I've worked just fine. But, you know, I guess this was a long way leading up to, like, have you ever heard of anybody making changes within their incubator, like adding large buckets of water or anything like that, where that's doing all the humidity?
No.
Other than Tracy Barker. Tracy Barker, you remember she incubated all her pythons in the giant walking incubator with the giant 30-gallon trash barrels. She used to incubate all her pythons. Like, well, maybe not her pygmy pythons, but a lot of the balls, you know, bigger bloods, and I think all the other moderate-sized species. So that's the only time I've ever heard someone doing something drastic with like incubation or doing something different than most people would.
Yeah. Yeah, really haven't heard of much. I've heard people keeping water, and open water to me just always seems, because again, with an incubator, you have power, you have electricity going in there. So I don't know, you know, people make their own incubators, and you get a puddle of water in there, and their heat tape falls off or something like that. That's not fun either. So you know, so what I do with mine is I just use water bottles, like closed water bottles, and put those. I have a Sea Serpents 36-inch incubator that I use. It does great. It dials in perfectly. And so I line the bottom with just like water bottles that are closed water bottles, and put those down there. I don't know why someone's like, oh, stabilize the temperature. I'm like, literally the whole door opens up. Those water bottles aren't holding it. I don't even care if it drips, you know, if it dips a couple of degrees, whatever, while I'm checking egg boxes. Think about what happens to these things in the wild. or just maternal incubation in your cage, and people are successful with that as well. So
No,
that's one thing I've not done. I've not done the maternal yet. I always chicken out.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I have for a minute, but I think the one time with the ball python, it was just a ball python. I think the egg started going bad, and I was like, why did I do this in the first place? And then I didn't even want to mess with another species.
Yeah.
Well, another technique that I heard from Panther Chameleon guys is they do a small deli cup with holes in it. They'll do a dry substrate with the eggs in it, and then they'll do a larger deli cup where it floats in water above the water. Put a lid on that too, and they do it that way. I had thought maybe that'd be kind of unique for Womas if I could do like literally suspended in a bucket over a bucket of water. Maybe that's going too far with something that's really not that difficult.
Right. That's my thoughts. Like you could probably just achieve it just doing it, any way that you just have a dry, keep the humidity up and keep them dry is the key. That's really, I think really all you need to do, and space them out. But if they're lumped together and people have success with that, then that's obviously not a huge needed concern either for the most part. I'll send you a paper. I did come across a paper like on this, and I don't remember who it was. It was I was reading some Hilo literature, and I think they're talking exactly about the incubation process or how they were doing it, the method. And I think it's the same thing where they had a bigger box and that had the water and such in there, and they had a smaller box inside there and all that. But again, to me, it just, man, I'm kind of clumsy sometimes. I can totally see myself just like and dropping that shit or something. It's like, I don't know. I wake up, I go to bed late and I wake up early a lot of times. It's like I check eggs when I go to bed and I look at them when I wake up. And there's times where I'm going to drop them, just normally open them up, So that's why water freaks me out. I just see it. It's more me personally, And I think open water just leads to a lot more humidity, which then leads to condensation, which then leads to drips and stuff like that too, which, I want to avoid all that when it's coming to Aspidites for sure.
And I don't know how true this is, but I remember hearing from people that said there seems to be a difference between the eggshells that sit directly on moisture compared to one that are suspended above it. As far as I don't know if it was texture of the egg stays harder or doesn't get softened enough for the egg tooth to cut through the egg. So I've heard rumors of
if they're wetter.
I guess because absorbing the moisture or something, being in contact compared to just being suspended above moisture in the air compared to sitting on the moisture. Right. At least that's what I was told. So I've always just kept things on substrate, and if I had to keep it drier, similar to you, just layer of dry, not quite as deep as yours, but I'm sure if I get Womas or blackhead eggs, I'll probably need to make it a lot deeper because of how much bigger their eggs are.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of all goes back to the light diffuser. That's why when I first did the rough scales, I just did them over vermiculite, and then I did a light diffuser in the box and put the eggs on top of the light diffuser and just had them sit in there. I think when I started doing the Womas, I just wanted something to have them spaced out basically and keep those even more drier than the rough scales. But then later on, I ended up doing the same method for rough scales and Angolans and ball pythons and Kimberley rocks and gosh, I don't know what else I had, water pythons and such. I just use the same method for all that stuff. Everything
you do that layer thing with all of it?
No, I just do it for all my pythons at this point.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and it works good. Yeah, I have no issues with it that way. So I mean, they all seem nothing dried out too much by any means.
Okay.
And you said with your blackheads, the same bin you're doing with your Woma pythons. If you might do 7 with your Woma bin, you'll probably do 3 if you have blackhead eggs.
Yeah, because my boxes are yay big. They're probably 12-inch boxes or so. The blackhead eggs were the size of my palm. They're huge. The babies come out and they're 16 inches, 18 inches. I mean, they're eating almost adult mice. They're way bigger than I thought they were going to be. So, so those guys, I just did 3 eggs. I just did 1, 2, 3 and spaced them out that way. And I was I probably could have fit them, but I'm I had room and they were a little bit later. So they didn't hatch until July last year. All the Womas were already out and everything at that point. So they were the last clutches to hatch out. So I had plenty of room in my incubator. So I'm just going to separate these into 2 boxes. And part of it was if one of the boxes dies, maybe I'll have better, not putting all your eggs in one basket, kind of idea. I was I'll separate them out and I can put them in here and we'll see what happens. It was interesting though, because in my sea serpents, I've got the shelves in there, 2 boxes, one on top of each other. The top box hatched after the bottom box by a week. So kind of interesting. It took them a while. And I've known, the they all seem to come out within a couple of days of each other and stuff. But I was kind of like, these eggs look great. And it's taking a while, and they finally pipped almost like, I think it was like almost 6 days later. Of course, we left and we were in Wisconsin, so I watch them hatch out on camera. I had another guy named Brett that lives down here in Austin swing by, and he's like, "This is awesome, dude. We're hatching blackheads." So he was all jazzed to come look at them and such. But yeah, nice. It was interesting because I was surprised there's such a difference, and it was completely in the two different boxes. And granted, on the shelf difference, but I mean the temperature difference between the two boxes can't be that big of a difference either. I wouldn't think.
What's your average hatch date for Woma pythons? Because mine came out this year on like day 54. Like legitimate 54. And I'm using, Ben's incubators. He's got the, what was that, Reptile Habitats?
Animal plastics, I think.
No. That it was not animal plastics. These aren't made of PVC. These are made of that like signboard that's wider. They got the
Nature Spirit
on the logo. What's that?
Nature Spirit? That's what Fuchs said for a while. I remember those.
No, you guys were both so wrong. I can't even remember what I said.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, no, I'll figure it out. I thought it was Reptile Habitats, but
Habitat Systems.
Habitat Systems. Okay, that's it.
Hey, you're halfway there.
Yeah,
you said to bring you home.
I'll compromise. The one incubator is the low incubator, kind of a wide load. Then the other ones are two taller ones. I had the Womas in the wide load one, and I also had some ball python clutches. My ball python clutches also hatched out a little early in that one compared to the incubator next to it. My ball python clutches actually waited until like day 60 to 63.
Okay.
So even though everything's saying I've got the old Helix on there, everything says 88. I got things in there. It's always 88, but that one incubator is just hatching things out faster. So
what's your temperature?
It's supposed to be 88 degrees. It always just says 88.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, so I'm always at like 60 to 62 days. This year has been 60. Last year was 62. Because I was like, I should probably start paying attention. I was like, oh, they're hatching. So I was kind of surprised. And so, yeah, the years before it was always 62, and I'm at 87.5.
Okay, cool.
Precisely 87.5.
You're using, what kind of thermostat is that then?
I use a Herpstat. Herpstat for everything.
Okay. I've been all over the place with thermostats over the years. Vivarium, I really like those when they came out. I like the presentation, like the stack. They do pretty good. My probes, I like to replace them every once in a while.
Do they click? Mine would click.
Yeah, I'd hear some clicky sounds. I think one threw like a money sign up one time. I've never had any overheating issues though. Like I've even had the screen not make any sense, but everything always stays dialed in. And they've always been really great about replacing things when things like that went wrong when I bring it up to them. I like the Renko. I know it's not necessarily like a meant for this hobby, but incubator wise, man, especially when I had a walk-in incubator, I really had a lot of faith in that Renko, and the Renko's never let me down.
Yeah, I mean those things are those are made for something more serious than what we're doing. Not saying not saying eggs are, but they're I mean those things are made not to fail for sure. I remember Fuchs had one of those a long time ago. I remember he got that, and he gave me the little blue Herpstat that had the two little screwdriver, like you had to go in there and tweak it to like screwdriver a little bit. And I was like, shit, I'm 3 degrees higher, and you had to go back the other direction and try to find like the right spot with that thing. Renkos were great. So I use Herpstats for everything. Because I just like having like the 4 or the 6. It kind of sucks when you get like a 5 stack and you're like, well, I can the one I have over here on this side. I've got, what do I have? I have a 1, a 2, and a 2 or something like that. So it's just kind of weird. It's just like 3 Herpstats for 5 cages. Seems a little strange, but they're just super handy. But like behind me, I've got 6 4-footers and then 4 6-footers below those. So I've got a 4 and a 6. So it's just 2 thermostats. Real easy that way. The one thing weird about the 6, and maybe it's just me not knowing, but like I do like the 4s because they tell you what the current temperature is and then the percentage that they're kicking out. My 6 does not do that. It just tells you what the current temperature is. And it's kind of, I don't care for that one as much because you can look at the 4 really quick and be like, okay, this thing's it's not doing anything. Since there's no need for it to try to put out any power. It's not pushing like at 100% to get, below the temperature or something. It kind of makes me feel a little more comfortable. And that it's like, okay, everything's dialed in and sitting at that temperature. It's not even trying to. It's not even working to be there right now. So maybe it might be a sign on the 6. But yeah, I've been really happy with herd staffs in general. And I use animal plastics for all my other cages as well.
Yeah.
Just collect them, see them, buy them. Pretty much.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I kept, I have a few stacks of animal plastic cages still set to the side. Nothing in them yet. I have no idea what I'm doing with them. I just didn't have the heart to sell them when we moved. I just like them so much.
Yeah, same. Yeah, whenever I see them come around, I've got like the 4x2s, 4x2 by 18, I think it is. Those things, they're pretty nice. We stack those and make them pretty easy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, good stuff.
Have you always been a cage guy when it comes to your pythons, or did you do racks and then move up to cages later on?
So, kind of, racks. I was around when racks really came out strong, before the whole ball python craze and such. So, and leopard geckos were in the racks way back, back in the 90s when I was doing stuff. So I always kind of did racks, and then it was always like I raise stuff in racks basically until it gets to a certain size, and then it goes up to a cage. So, right now I really have no racks. I've got one boa in a rack, and that's it. I've got 10 open boxes. So, but I'm raising some Stimson eyes, so those will eventually go in there. So, like those guys, I would keep in a rack. But everything else, like the Womas and stuff, I keep them for maybe a year in there until they get to a size. Like even my blackheads, I kept them in 32 quarts after they hatched out. I got like a meal or two in them, and I'm like, you guys are so big and you move so much, you're going to go into 32 quart and then cages after that. Yeah, and I have a small collection too, so it allows me to have, I don't know. I start feeling like things are getting claustrophobic a little bit, so I kind of want, bigger cages, higher cages, and give everybody a little more height, and everybody seems to use it quite a bit. Like everything, all my cages have arbor, I have the hides. I use the Reptile basic hides. And I'll just drill a hole in the bottom of the top of those, I guess, technically. Drill a hole in those, and drill a hole in the top of the cage, get like a long, I have one here. I'll get one of these guys, like a wing bolt kind of deal. Yeah. So I put him down, and I feed the box up under there, and then just zip this guy up and hold the box in place. And it's funny because like the ball python loves it. I've got a blue-eyed Lucy that I've had. Mine turned 40, so 10 years ago I got him. It's my only ball python. He's pretty cool. So I got him in, but like the Angolans, the Womas, the blackheads, all of them go up in there and they all sit in the boxes. It's pretty funny. Yeah. So they all love it. They all hang out of it and they all hunt and and I have a box on the ground too. And they're like, nope, go in there.
Every python, all my carpet pythons do that. They all sit in the sky hides and they'll wait till midnight, and then they'll kind of hang off of a perch in the sky hide in the ambush position or something. It's pretty cool. You start keeping things in cages, you start seeing like they have routines they do like every day, same time. Like I can tell when the lights are going to get ready to go off because the carpets will sit out in their ambush position or come out an hour before the lights go out and actually sit there and wait.
Yeah,
so it's interesting. The only time they do things different is if they're gravid or in shed. They're in shed or gravid, they'll hide most of the day. But other than that,
I have a pair of Bolivian boas, and the male he was out cruising around. He's like you said, he's kind of done the same circle the last few nights, and 2 weeks was up, so he got fed yesterday, and he was just like, "All right, this is I've been waiting for this." So he was pretty jazzed to see that. He's like, "Finally, my circle's complete." So. It's fun to watch them go out. Like I do cork barks and everything. I've got branches and stuff to get up there, and it's pretty cool when they shed, and all of a sudden you just see a shed dangled all through the branches and everything. You're like, that actually works pretty good. So like my Sanzinia boa, I had a hard time getting him to shed, so I soak him really good, and he gets up and cruises all around, and it's pretty nice to get like a full shed out of him and such. Because for some reason I just wasn't getting full sheds often from him. He just flake it all apart and such. So. And he's in a planted, like I've got a 4x2x2 with a bunch of pothos and kind of did like a bioactive for him. It's all soil on the bottom. So I just soak him like once he gets ready to shed, and seems to help out pretty much in that. So that's what I like about the cages and stuff. You can really, give them a good, humid spot without getting the whole thing humid really. You can bring the humidity up in the cage, but kind of give them like more of a damper spot in the hide box where there's still like dry areas to get to and such. I know when I do it like in a rack, that stuff just creeps. And I use cocoa bark. I use rough the chip for everything. And so you get that, especially like in a rack, you'll put you'll throw some water in there, and the whole thing will just go all the way across and fill in and stuff. Next thing you know, you're like, man, this whole thing's damp. and you get condensation on the ceiling and such. So yeah, the cage guy. And I started kind of playing around with some bioactive stuff as well too. Like I've got a paludarium I set up in the 3x2, or was this one 3x18 Exoterra. I did the water on the bottom and built a whole thing up. I'm like, I have no idea if this is going to work or not. And it's fully planted, and it's been planted now for probably close to like 8 years, somewhere around there. Like I have to go in there and give it a haircut and trim all this stuff out. And I built it for red-eyed skinks. Then I realized this is a really shitty design for these poor things, because I was like, I tried to do this whole thing, and it looks awesome now. It's like a floating cloud almost, with all the plants hanging down to the water. It's like a little waterfall creek thing going through in there. And I was like, these things don't have much, like they don't have a lot of surface area to run around on and such, So I did get some morning geckos. I threw 5 in there, and I see 1 every once in a while, and that's about it. So I put fish in the bottom and stuff, and kind of fun. So I definitely like kind of tweaking out with some of those things and just trying to build stuff and see if stuff will grow. Take some plant clip-ins and plug them in. I'll see like, oh, now I got to trim it way back and such. So trying to play around. I used to do reef tanks as well back in the day. So yeah, I had a big 65 gallon in Chicago, and man, I was slinging rocks out of the house, man. That was fun. It would be like growing up a big like frag, big coral colony and stuff. And you go in there and clip them off and glue them on a little piece of plug, and some dude would roll up to your house and roll down his window, and you just walk out and like hand him a little bag of rocks and, and stuff. And it was sweet. They worked pretty good, man. The little coral frags and stuff. So after that, I was kind of like, that's how I started kind of playing with it with reptiles a little bit, being like, let's build some natural stuff. So eventually I could see myself going that way and going way less animals. And like Ari's, like Rooklandia is 40 minutes from here. We were just there last Sunday, and you see some of the setups they do. Like wouldn't mind doing this whole back wall as just one giant living cage basically at some point, like doing like a big 10-foot thing that's 6 feet high, 4 feet deep. And I don't know what I'd put in there yet, but just do something, the whole thing, just build it out and just do one massive thing, just curate it, or do something like that eventually.
That'd be tight. Yeah, I got a bunch of Exoterras. I think I got like 6 to 8 of them that are empty that I want to just do bioactives with. And we did put one together. It's growing, but it's taking its sweet old time. I don't even really know what species. We might put one of the boiga in there. I'm not really sure what the plan for it is. We just kind of made one night. Like there was no rhyme or reason. We just started fucking picking things up and jamming cork bark back, and then planted it all. And it's been growing for about 6 months to a year, but I thought it'd be flourishing a little more. I'm gonna have to add some more plant life, but yeah, like I kind of want newts. I always had newts growing up. So I've always thought a bioactive for some newts would be pretty unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I went down that wormhole once and started researching on what I figured out is I think most of them need to be kept cooler. I was afraid I was going to be provided down here. So that's why I kind of backed off. Man, there's some really cool newts for sure. Some of the mountain stuff is really wild.
So we have all these different things for the industry when it comes to tools. Do we have any like small air conditioning units that can go in cages for these species? They need to be kept cooler in a warm home.
Should do it. There you go. It'd be easy enough to figure out.
I can make the plastic box, but I can't do any of the shit on the inside. So I'm probably not the right guy for the job.
I mean, you'd think you'd be able to use some kind of, you'd think there'd be some way of doing it, I would think. Like on the Sanzinia cage, I put just a computer fan on the side and put that inside there just to get, because I was noticing where I was like, it just felt stagnant with the plants and stuff in there. So I started just blowing air through there and cycling that whole thing. And it's definitely made things healthy in there. But yeah, if there's a way you could do a little coolers in there, or even something where you had like a unit that you could pipe into each cage or something like that kind of blew some cold air in there. And so I'm sure there's got to be something to figure out. But we've got just a standalone air conditioner you can cool a whole room with. So they probably make some small units or something. No. It's a good idea.
Well, it seems like a no-brainer. Someone's going to do it.
Get Kush on there. There you go. For his rattlesnakes.
Yeah, I'll take one for free if anyone comes up with the idea. I appreciate it.
All right. I'll put some feelers out.
Yeah, Angolan pythons too. When I talk about cycling in my building, so Bree's got some Angolans. I want to say maybe like a 1.3 now, but she has 2 females she's rotated every year.
Okay.
They're on 6 months apart from each other. Like literally, they never have ever cycled together. It's like you get a clutch of Woma eggs, and then like literally 4 to 6 months later, there's another clutch of Woma eggs. I'm sorry, Angolan.
Angolans,
eggs.
yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, again, I'm sure you have more of a set season with what you're doing.
Yeah, I do all mine exactly the same way. I just do the Thanksgiving where I start cutting food, start putting things together a few weeks later, and then usually do that till about Valentine's Day. Is usually my cycle, and yeah, my Angolans fell right in the same cycle as that. That's interesting. They should come 6 months apart. That's wild. It's kind of cool. It's fun. You have babies the whole year.
No, honestly, smaller clutches though. Our females aren't gigantic. Will, I don't know if you remember the Angolan that was at Ben's place, but the thing was like a giant in my opinion.
I've seen a bunch of giants. Like I remember going to the Kansas City show, and this guy was selling a pair of his adults, and I'm like, "Good God, these things are!" I mean, they were as thick as my wrist. I mean, they were pretty thick, big Angolans. Mine are. I have one proven breeder female, and she's a 2018, and she's like, I don't know, but horrible at size, terrible size, something like that. Maybe just under 6 foot. It's not very. I mean, not as big as some people's Angolan pythons. But that kind of leads me to a question for you. Do you still work with Angolan pythons?
I don't. No, I sold those guys too. We remodeled our house. And that cost way more than I was expecting. So, so I kind of went through the collection, started kind of dialing back at that point. So the Angolans went, but they're on the short list to get back into because I do miss those guys for sure.
Yeah.
It's like you get out some projects and you're kind of like, yeah, it's kind of hard, but then you're like, okay, I feel okay. Like I do miss having like rough scales around and such.
I was wondering if you had those too. I was wondering if you did rough scales too.
So the female, she got egg bound and she didn't die. She had the eggs surgically removed. So she had bred. She got 2 clutches. Did great. The 3rd clutch, she was egg bound. So then we had taken them out. Had surgery. She was good. Actually, is that right? She had a clutch. I had 2 females. So she had a clutch and then she got egg bound. Had surgery. We tried her again. Had a clutch. No problems at all. Was perfect. And then the next time after that, she then got egg bound again. I was like, okay, she's retired. And she actually she was actually owned by Todd Trowbridge out in the Bay Area. Todd's an old blackhead Woma guy and such. So it was actually his female. So I traded, I forgot what it was, like 5 Ackies and some money for 1.1 rough scales. And they came in and I was like, I didn't really sex them right away. I probably should have. And I kept them together. They weren't doing anything. I'm like, what is going on here? And then after not too long, they both shed. And I was like, shit, those are both males. So I ended up with 2.0. And then Chad Gray was friends with Todd. And he's like, oh, weird. Todd's female or male just died. So he's just sitting on like a big female. And man, when she came in, she was like, she was a big girl. She could knock down medium to large rats easily. Like her head was, she had like a massive head on her and such. So she came in and that's who we bred at that point. And then I did pick up another female at that time. So yeah, I just moved that project on when we did the house remodel and such. But I do miss having those guys. They were fun. They were awesome. But yeah, between those guys and the Angolans are definitely 2 species I would shortlist to get back into.
Right. I always said Angolans were that species I didn't really appreciate or enjoy until I got my hands on them, and I was like, wow, these are actually really, really cool pythons.
They're like mini berms. They move around. They're curious. They don't.
It's funny you say that. Berms, I got addicted to too. I ended up getting a berm or 2 berms. I'm like, God, I love these things too.
Yeah,
I was like, I could see the appeal too for sure. But with the Angolans, do you ever have regurgitation issues with any of your Angolans?
I didn't, but I'm definitely familiar that they do.
It's odd that I hear about this, and I've heard a few different either people saying they're too big of prey items. Well, I tried, Dave. I sent that picture to you. There was a wild Angolan eating some kind of native hare, whatever rabbit species is in Angolan area, and it was eating a full-grown rabbit. So I go, well, I don't think it's too big. I think there's
right. Well, you don't know if that one threw up.
Yeah. And yeah, that's true. I guess you don't know if it regurgitated afterwards or something. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was it eating whatever that species of hare it is.
That's cool.
But yeah,
Todd was out herping and in Angola and actually found some in the wild. It's pretty cool. Nice. He was over there and such. Yeah. I've heard that there's a line that's more like prone to do like regurg, I guess, is what I've heard.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's true either. Honestly, I think it may be just people feeding them too much
Right.
because they're not ball pythons, even though they kind of look like a ball python. Like I fed mine more almost like a red tail. I kind of fed them like every other week in small prey items and such. Like I wasn't
Right.
feeding them big items and stuff. My girl I got a pair from Gary Stravino, and I mean the female was massive. She was big. She actually looked like that boa look that looks like Wonder Bread, where you get like the bag. She had back straps on her. I was like, damn, this was legit. I mean, she was well put together, and the male wasn't small either. So they were a good size. But yeah, I'd like to get back into those guys for sure. They're very, very underrated. It was funny because I remember I was at NRBC and at a table, and someone's like, "What kind of ball python's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's an Angolan and stuff." And they're just like, not interested. I'm like, walked away. I'm like, but you're missing out on how cool these are.
Right.
Like, it's not, maybe it looks like a Mardi Gras or a highway or whatever the hell you want to call it, but it's they're just they're cool. They got great personalities. They're outgoing. They're good feeders. I think I've never had any issues. I never had one regurg at all. Babies were easy to start. They're super nippy as babies, which is awesome because you can just go and start with a hopper mouse right off the bat, and they just instantly take it down after they figure out they'll bite it once, not take it, and the second time they're like, oop, there you go, just right down the rack. So
right.
that was like the best rack ever. I had like Womas and Angolans like in the same rack, and I'm like, all right, let's try the feeding trials, and like every single Woma went on their first try, and then you got down the Angolans, and all 5 of those ate. I was like, sweet, perfect, that was easy. And then the next one I get to the rough scales, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Because they were not easy to start for sure. They weren't.
That's what I've heard. Are they more? Did you scent with a lot of birds with the rough scales?
I did, yeah. I tried that later on, and that definitely helped for sure.
Okay.
Honestly, after the first clutch was, you're like, I gotta get these things feeding. I gotta get these feeding. I didn't start feeding the second clutch until they started moving. So I just ignored them for basically like a month after they shed.
Right.
And then you start seeing them kind of cruising around in their tubs. I'm like, okay, now you're going to start feeding. I had much better success waiting for that to happen. And once they started cruising, I'm like, okay, it's time for food, and get you going that way. So I definitely did the little mohawk with some chick fuzz on their heads and tried that. If that didn't work, then I'd just get a fuzzy and do the old brown paper bag trick and just put them in a bag, brown paper bag with a live fuzzy. Put those guys in, and then a lot of times that would work as well. Just leave them overnight.
Okay.
What do you think it is about that brown paper lunch bag?
I don't know, man. The shit works.
That's like the oldest school method to get like a snake that's not feeding. You used to do that baby ball pythons back in the day.
It makes it, especially when they're in racks already. You'd think that there's no. You'd think if they're in a rack and it's a smaller tub and stuff, they would just be right there, right? It wouldn't matter. But yeah, so I mean, what I'll do is I'll do a brown paper bag, roll it up and put it in there, and then put the bag in their box in this rack and put it back. I just don't keep it on the heat tape, obviously. I just keep it on like away from the heat tape. And sure enough, that like I'll try leaving like a something overnight in their tub. They just won't do it. And put them in a brown paper bag, and also I'm like, well, there you go. I don't know what it is, but it definitely works.
I would say I've only ever tried the cupping method with like Antaresia babies, like a little serving cup. You poke them holes in the top, like little like pinholes, so they can breathe, and put the pinky and the Antaresia in there. And a lot of times that would work. Sometimes I had to do unscenting. Sometimes I noticed some of the species I didn't even need to scent anything. If I just washed the pinky off or the fuzzy off, a lot of times they would take just an unscented animal rather than a scented animal.
I haven't had luck with that. I did try that, doing the unscented, and for some reason it didn't work for me. I tried with the blackhead. The blackheads weren't super easy to start either, honestly. Yeah. They were kind of struggle. They all eventually ate, and they all did great, and they just all on their own plan. One takes off, you're like sweet, and the other ones you like had to kind of force feed and start them off and get them going that way and such. And I tried the unscented method and was like, all right, this is going to be it. And I tracked down the soap and everything. I had no luck. I was like, son of a bitch. So kept trying to try it out. But yeah, it's definitely definitely a good trick to hold on to for sure. Because I know, Gary says he has a lot of good luck with that for his, that he uses his for.
Yeah.
So how do you rule out the tricks to the ones you're willing to do yourself? Like, at what point did you say you have to do the paper bag? Was it you had one laying around? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, after talking to Patrick Holmes, and He's like, what you got to do is cut the back leg off a mouse. And then you peel back the fur and you make yourself a drumstick. And then you use that to go. And I was like, and that actually works great. But yeah, so there's not too many tricks I wouldn't not try, honestly, you know. And that was for force feeding, and that actually worked great for the rough scales because they were so small. Then anytime you try to do a pink or something, it was too big and it was just causing issues. So I started just doing mouse legs that way, and it was like a meaty little thing. You could easily get down into their throats and have them swallow that way and such. So usually I always start off kind of the same way. I start off with frozen thawed. Try that, see if that works, and I'll do that for a while. Try to tease feed them. And if that doesn't work, leave it in overnight. If that doesn't work, I'd give it a week, try it again, or a couple of days and such. And then I'll go to the chick fuzz. That sometimes picks up right away. If that doesn't work, then I'll try brown paper bag. And then if that doesn't work, I go find a live fuzzy at that point. So I don't have a good source for live feeders here. So there's a pet store. I don't like, I don't know. I'm nervous going in there for what would come home for one, you know, and I don't really know anyone else breeding around here for the most part, or, you know, what else is in there. So I try to always avoid live in general. Like if I was producing my own, I'd have no issues with it. I just don't have a place to do it. So I haven't done it. So that's why I'm so hesitant on trying live. And that's the only reason why. And if the animals are big enough, I'd just go straight to quail, honestly, you know. I should, unfortunately, like, that's one thing I would be tempted. I would try to breed some quail because I think I could pull that off outside here. I'd just be afraid of everything else that lives. We back up to the woods right behind us, and so there's always, you know, possums, raccoons, rat snakes, all kinds of stuff cruising through here. I'd never just find coyotes. I'd be wondering if they would mess with the quail at all.
Oh, I'm sure if you let them. We have a lot of foxes in our yard, and if a duck gets out of its coop, we probably are going to lose the duck. We did find a black rat snake in with the geese the other day, but it wasn't big enough to eat an egg. Okay. Then we went out of town for the weekend, came back, and one of the eggs was missing. So I think a rat snake was big enough at that point. Huh. So we actually have a bit of the predator in my backyard, but quail, man, you know, the output on quail, like I think they have like 250 eggs a year, which is unbelievable. Nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very simple maintenance. If you build the right cages, man, it's like easy to clean. You know, we did quail for a while, and I honestly kind of enjoyed it. I didn't get to do as much with it as I wanted to, but I loved having those little things around when we needed them for food. Yeah. Terry Burwell did he did button quail for a little bit, and he's like, dude, it's so crazy. He's like, you get them, your females get big enough. He's like, you go in there, there's an egg, and you take the egg out, and you go back the next day, there's an egg. By the end of the week, you're like, I have 7 eggs. And by the end of like the next week, you've got 14 eggs. Next week, you have like 21 eggs, and they start hatching. And he goes, but then you have like 3 females. So multiply that by 3. And he's like, it was crazy how prolific they are. They just keep going. But he was feeding his like, for the Boega that he has, he was just feeding straight quail eggs to those guys as well. Which is kind of a neat little process as well too. Because he said he'd just put eggs in there and they'd just go eat them down as well, or you just have little quail. So yeah, I think that's a good. That probably will honestly work better, I think, than try to like do frozen thawed fuzzies sometimes. Like just go straight to like a quail. I think that'd work pretty well. Yeah, I did have a quail resource, but I didn't need what she was putting out, and then I think I ghosted her, and now I don't have a quail resource anymore. She might have got out completely, but you know the cool thing about being in Missouri is there's so many farmers doing random things. Sure. When we need things like that, it's actually not as hard to find as you think it would be. Yeah, I'm trying to get my friends to do it. They've got a commune that he's building. So he's like, they're bringing in all like, you know, different animals and stuff. And I'm like, they're trying to do like a self-sustained kind of property basically. And I'm like, can you please just do quail for us? Like, I'll pitch in and help like supply livestock, whatever else, man. And I'll come help out, you know, maintain stuff. I'm like, you guys have a perfect place to do it. Let's just, you know, you guys want to grow them, we want to grow them. Like, let's try to do something. So might try to do it out at his place as well too, because he's just got a bunch of land out there. Nice. You should call the company Waco Quail. Waco, I like it. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, he's right by the racetrack, right by Coda. Nice. Oh, look at that little guy. Yeah, he jumps in every once in a while. He can only stand so much. So when you first, you know, we talk about, you know, your saltwater stuff, fracking, all that. What species, like when you came to the hobby, did you do like some bullshit species just because they were like entry level and then you're like, man, I want to go this direction? Or did you always have like a goal right off the bat?
No. I mean, I started back in 91, I think it was, somewhere around there. So I had a friend who passed away and he had an iguana, green iguana, and it was actually a pretty cool iguana. So did you ever go to Hoffers? Were you familiar with Hoffers up in Wisconsin? Over in Greenfield?
No, I didn't get to do much. I was like 9 years old when I left Wisconsin.
Okay,
That
that
makes
makes
the rest
sense.
of my life. It was like 3 days in Madison, back to where I lived.
Yeah. So we had a great little fish store / reptile store down, not reptile, but just pet store downtown Oconomowoc where I grew up. So we just ride our bikes down there all the time, and you'd be like, holy shit, there's a ball python or there's a red-tailed boa, like Colombians and stuff, which that's all there was at that time and such. So but I never really, I liked it, but I just never really got into it. I was always kind of freaked out by snakes when I was really little and such. Fast forward a little bit later on, like I was always catching turtles and snakes and stuff just around, and out in the woods and everything. I got a couple of ferrets, so we had some ferrets for a little while, so kind of played around with those guys. They were just house pets. But then when my friend passed away, his parents were like, you seem like animals, can you take in this iguana? So we took in Iggy. We had him for quite a while, and that kind of started bridging where I was like, oh, how do you take care of this? And he was really chill, and he was cool. And I didn't get any snakes actually until I went to college. So weirdly enough, I went to Stevens Point my freshman year, the same year that Fuchs was there and Garrick DeMeyer. So we were all at Point, but we never met. Like I didn't know those guys at that time, but we all lived like right across the street from each other. All ironically snuck animals into our dorm rooms and never knew each other. So kind of funny. So when I was there, I started like, there's a little pet store. Someone over got a tokay gecko and started kind of getting some of my own stuff. Got those guys and then moved out there. And then once I got to Milwaukee, there was a small pet store downtown. And then we started finding like Lee Watson's Reptile Swap down in Illinois. Yeah. So we started making the voyage down there and such. And so I started off, I got a fox snake, I think was my first snake I got. And I was like, oh, it's a fun little snake, And then right from there, I went to boa to labyrinth Burmese python. So this guy, Michael Whitefeather, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. So he was like a retake guy before retake bros or retake bros. And this guy had like, I don't know, man. He just had this like a bin of like labyrinth Burmese pythons. And he's like, oh, Bob Clark produced these. And I just remember the Burmese book, like the Philip de Vajole book that he had. That had a picture of like a tub with like labyrinth Burms in there. And this is back in probably 93, 94, somewhere around there. And I'm like, shit, man, I'll buy one. So I ended up buying a labyrinth Burmese and started raising those up. And then got an albino Burmese as well. And I didn't really know much what I was doing. I thought I had a big female at one time. And this dude moved into his mom's house a couple of doors down on the east side of Milwaukee when I transferred down there. And dude, he had like a 14, 15-foot female normal. That was like, holy shit, that's an adult. I'm like, okay, mine are not that big. My female did lay eggs, and I didn't know how to incubate them or anything at that point. But ever since then, after that, it was like we'd just go down to Watson's, start kind of playing around and get monitors and play with that. And then kind of I was like, all right, let's look at some different stuff. Leopard geckos kind of came on, so I started doing leopard geckos, not heavy, but just kind of like, okay, I can breed these and make these, and kind of start going down the path that way. Yeah. Then I was drunk at a bar one night, and I met this lovely man, Chad Fuchs. We just happened to be sitting next to each other, and like, you guys have never. And my college roommates went to high school with Fuchs, so they're like, you got to meet Fuchs. You got to meet Fuchs. You got to meet Fuchs. I'm like, I keep hearing about this guy all the time. And then we're sitting at the bar, and he's like, that's him right next to you. And then we just seriously talked like reptiles for like 2 hours and closed the bar out and shit. And I went to his place, and I was like, oh, this is how you do it. Like, he had this little sunroom in his parents' house or whatever, and go in there, and he just had racks and racks, and he's like, this is the grandma, this is this one, this is the male, I bred this to this. And I was like, after that I was hooked and just started dabbling with collie breds, started doing gray bands at that time, and started playing around with some other animals. Like, I remember we had like jungle carpets. I was like, never seen a jungle carpet before. It was late 90s, and it was pretty slick. So that's kind of when it all started to go down the path, was after that. But at first it was just Noah's Ark, just find some stuff and play with it.
Oh, that's awesome. Chad Fuchs is like probably my top 10 in the hobby. He's one of those guys, I think, like most people, I was probably drunk somewhere and ran into him. I always enjoy seeing Chad. He's always doing something so crazy.
He's always Fuchsing around.
Yeah, exactly. I have in my phone as Chad Fuchs.
It's
Funny.
growing up in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin, we'd drive to Milwaukee. There's a giant sign, like huge billboard on the side of the road, just said Fuchs on it. And we'd all snicker as kids, like, it says Fuchs, you know? And we'd always laugh around. And like, then turns out later on that's Fuchs's family stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy, very knowledgeable, but also has fun. Like, you can be one extreme or the other in any given moment. There's always some crazy Chad story. He's somebody I'll probably bring on the podcast.
You just always got to keep back in your mind that you might get your ass kicked. But
by him or being around him?
Just being around him. Because somebody always wants to kick his ass.
Yeah.
It's always like, someone's like, that's it.
Yeah. I tried telling the story one time. Like, oh, so I've told the story before, but I think I butchered it the first time. But so Daytona Beach, I like to do drugs. And every night I like to do a different drug. And every night I would go to that little pizza place across the road. And the first night I was there at like 11. The second night I was there at like 2. And the third night I think I was there at like 3 in the morning. But every single time I went there, I ran into this group of college dudes. Yeah. And every time we talked about drugs, and then we went our merry way. Well, the third night I get back to the pizza parlor. Jason Hood, Chad Fuchs, and Tim Bailey were waiting for me. I think I was barefoot just walking back from a hotel down the road. And I think it was MDMA that night. So I get to the pizza place, and all these college dudes are there again. And they're outside, and they're fucking furious. They're like, we're going to beat the fuck out of these guys. They're like just being bros. And then they see me walk up, and they're like, oh, it's that guy again. I'm like, what's your drug tonight? I tell them my drug I'm on tonight. And then they're like, yeah. And they're like, we're going to beat the fuck out of these guys. And they pointed at Chad Fuchs, Tim Bailey, and Jason Hood. Now, Jason would have been just fine. Jason needed no help. I'm sure he could have taken them all on by himself. But so like they say that to me, and I was like, oh, those are my friends. I was like, they're waiting for me because I'm out here high on drugs and barefoot. And they're like, oh, and they kind of like do a little this and that. And then this dude comes out. He's like, let's go, man. We're fucking doing this. And they're like, nah, we're not doing this anymore. And he's like, what the fuck you mean we're not doing this anymore? He's like, oh, we're not going to fuck with those guys. They're good. And then he's like, who the fuck is this guy? And they're like, well, we don't even really know this guy, but we're done. And then that was the night. And then I went in there and we walked down to the beach. And I think I talked Tim and Chad not to go swimming that night. Usually when they do their little swimming thing in Daytona, I keep an eye on their clothes for them until they come back. I'm still not convinced if they really swim out in the ocean or not, or if they just claim they are. They might just go out of sight, but they're gone for like an hour at a time most of these times. Have you ever been there for that?
I have not. So the only time I went to Daytona was in 2000. So yeah, it's been a long time, and I just remember being really hot and such. Yeah. I don't think he was down there that time for some reason. I think he started going afterwards more often. But yeah, I need to get down there for that sometime because that would be a fun trip.
I say it to everybody, you really need to be at Daytona. It's just the atmosphere is perfect. It's warm.
It's Florida.
Not hot. It's fucking Florida. How are you not going to be happy in Florida?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, I'll have Chad on this sometime. I know he jumped on with MJ like last week, but I don't even know if I'd talk animals with Chad. I'd probably just talk about all the times he's exposed himself in public to people and him getting knocked around a little bit by wedding parties. Like,
his fart spray. His fart spray in an elevator, whatever else. I mean, he's got all kinds of tricks.
He's a prankster, man. He never turns it off.
He was definitely the kid with the whoopee cushion for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all need one of those guys in the group.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, you just got to keep an eye on him.
But
so that's definitely when things clicked, and I was like, man, this guy, this hobby's so much bigger, This hobby's so much bigger,
Oh, we got an echo because Will.
Oh, did I fuck it all up?
Yeah. Oh, geez, I thought that was me.
No, it's not you. I saw William play with him though. So.
I'm gonna drink a beer. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I'm on my second beer myself, sir. It's Friday night.
Excellent.
We'll ignore William, but hey, man, William's having a pretty good year. I'm sure you follow William online. But,
I do. I love what he's doing. It's amazing. He's got animals that I'm like, good. I can live vicariously through you.
Every time I post a picture of that female Woma, I get it's either you or Lucas that'll message me. Get any babies yet? Any babies yet?
That's how I do. Basically, it's just it's like any of these animals. If someone's got something nice, you just get in their ear right away and be like, "Hey, keep me posted when things have been time." Like this clutch here, I got 6 on this first clutch. I'm like 3 of them are not going anywhere right off the bat. So I'm sure yours will be the same way, and you get them. So it's hard to get your hands on good animals sometimes because the right people tell them. But no, I love everything you're working on there, man. That's amazing. You got the Sri Lankans, right?
Yep. Indians and Sri Lankans. They're both interesting animals. They nothing like Burmese. Burms they'll huff and puff at you, but once you get them out, they're usually just fine. Indians, I mean, they'll huff at you, but that's only after you push them past this point of no return, because shortly after the huffing, you start getting the flailing and the flipping around, especially if you touch them. Like, I remember I just thought I would just go in there and grab them to get them out real quick, the good old quick grab and take or whatever. And as soon as I grabbed them, they just, like a fish out of water, just start flailing around. I go, they're probably like 5 or 6 foot now, both the Indians and the Sri Lankans.
It's amazing how they can throw their bodies.
Yeah, I'm like, no, this isn't going to work out too well. So I'm eventually when I get them in the cages, I'm getting these. You ever seen the venom boxes, the venom hide boxes?
Like the shift box.
I'm doing something similar, but just obviously upscale to a lot bigger for the big snakes. So I can just take the snake out, seal them in the box if they don't want to get messed with, and keep it like that. 'Cause most of them like sitting in that hide anyway. So if I can keep them in there,
keep working out, man.
Yeah. It's the conditioning. It's the conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You have to stay swole for that.
Yeah.
So, nice. That's a good idea for sure, man. Because I've had Sri Lankans. They were beautiful, but man, like you say, you touch them and it just
it's game on. Just the moment I touch them, it's like my male's not too bad. He's a little bit better, but he'll still lose his shit after a little while. Like he doesn't. Mm-hmm. They just don't tolerate the handling the same as like a Burmese or something. So
but they're pretty to look at.
Yeah, they're neat to look at. But you know what? What's probably the most dodgy out of all of them? At least the Indians and Sri Lankans will do this in front of you, so you know it's game on. The rock python will actually wait for me to turn my back before it does something. Like it'll notice. It'll.
I forgot you had those things too.
Yeah, it'll thud as soon as it notices I do some kind of like shoulder turn or something. Once I turn, my face isn't looking at it. That's when it decides to strike at something.
Wow. And
I'm like, man, you guys are just so interested.
That's too much.
Yeah. I don't mind. Like I said, once you get these high box situation figured out, because when you just have them in a tub or a blank cage and you actually have to physically deal with them, that's where I think the problems lie. But if you can do it to where you treat them almost like a venomous, where you only really need to mess with them if it's medical or just to look at them or something like, or pull them off eggs if you do breed them. But other than that, there's really not much of a reason to have to touch them if you don't need to.
No, makes sense. Yeah, for sure. If you want to watch TV with your Afrock or something like that.
Yeah, I can't imagine too many people are doing it.
Put some work in.
Yeah. Well, I heard the new trend might be breeding your Afrocks into your balls to make I don't know, some sort of super hybrid. I know someone's doing it with Burmese. I don't know if you follow this, Dave. Someone's trying to market Burm balls.
Dude, yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute of it.
Interesting.
Like, I think I saw hypo. There was a hypo Burm ball that was het clown or maybe double het for something. I've seen quite a few things come out. It's really changing a lot about. I don't know what to say. Like, I love it all. I love playing God. I love making these mutants. Now, I haven't had much success with hybridizing anything on my end. But, I used to love going to the shows and seeing all the hybrids for the colubrid stuff. Kings, the milks, the corns, and, there's a place for it, man. But I want to talk about hybrids, but really quick, last thing I want to ask about like Sri Lankans and all that. How do you market an asshole species that you can never touch for the rest of your life?
Right.
Or ship, or send out of the state.
Well, I see a lot more people. They're definitely fitting into that nostalgic species where a lot of people from back in like the 80s and 90s, like I've had a lot of old timers talk about like, man, I remember messing with those in like my 20s or something, and man, what I'd give to get that kind of stuff. It's kind of like classic cars. That's what it's kind of giving me the vibe of.
For sure.
And if
that's me.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are into them for that standpoint. And if you work with them, they're not bad. It's just I'm a quitter. Once they bite me, I'm like, okay, we're just not going to have that great of a relationship. So I just kind of know what's hands off and what I can mess with. And so I quit easy. Everyone I've sold baby white lips to, the ones I hold back are terrible. But the ones I've sold to people who were willing to put in the work, they do Instagram pictures and videos without blood on their hands. If that was me, I'd have blood all over my hands. So, yeah. So if you're willing to work with them, I'm sure you could do it. I just quit easy. So
Blakey had a big one. He had a big female for a while.
Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah, I was wanting to get Michael Pinnell to get it for me.
Yeah, he was trying to get me. He's like, just come get this thing. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I'd start with a baby and then go from there. But I don't know about just starting with like a 9-foot or 10-foot one right off the bat that Blake has raised.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, I've never seen pictures of that. I was like, damn, that is a beautiful animal.
They're hard to beat, man. There's some of the pretty. I think when it comes to the python genus, the only thing that really comes close to that group, if you're not talking about mutations and stuff, is like some of the localities of South African rock pythons. I think you can get pretty equally as far as colors and patterns and different looks. But Sri Lankans and Indians definitely have. Shame they just didn't make it through the years when berms were blowing up in popularity.
Yeah, the albino.
Yeah,
the albino kicked that off. I remember when the greens came out, seeing those for the first time too, in the labyrinths, and then after that, I kind of simmered down a little bit. But I was always a big labyrinth guy. Still love those things.
Yeah,
impressive. Yeah. Those pieds. Do you have a pied?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I saw the pieds and I was like, I can't not have one of those in my life. So.
They're so nice.
Yeah, they're super pretty.
It's like
but
a perfect pie,
I like normal berms. I told him, they said he offered me like, do you want an albino het pied? I said, do you have any normal double hets? Because I'll take not big, but a normal double het that looks like a wild type. Some of the het pieds can have pretty unique patterns and stuff. They can be almost pinstripe looking, kind of for the most part. At least some of the hets I've seen. So I wanted something with as wild type as you can get with the het pied animals. So
here comes another wormhole. Het pied berms.
Right. I don't mind just having them as pets either. Like I said, I'm definitely not someone who gets them with the intentions that I need to breed it. I just like having it, and if I want to breed it, I always can later.
Sure.
But that's like with the whole Rennick ghost stuff, because the Rita community, man, you'd be hard pressed to find any pure locality mainland stuff, because all the locality stuff people care about are in the small stuff. It's never in the big stuff.
Yeah,
the big stuff is always dominated by the morphs, so no one ever really paid attention or cared about it.
Sure.
And Ben's original Rennick ghost was from North Sumatran, and I still say to this day, one of the biggest regrets I ever had was never being able to get or afford that male whenever Ben was looking to get rid of it, or when Dave was looking to move it on, I guess, after that, is that male. And I got a group of stuff from Ryan, because Ryan, you know how Ryan is when it comes to this lineage and stuff. He's pretty meticulous on what he gets. And I asked him, he's like, the most I could find out on the locality of these guys is Malaysian Sumatran crosses, which is still all the same species. It's not, there's no genetic difference. Even look wise, a lot of Sumatrans look like northern Malaysian, Malaysian animals look like a lot of the northern Sumatrans. So I said, fuck it, this is probably going to be the closest I ever get to like the
original ghost male, so I picked up some ghost retic stuff just to,
Nice.
just to keep that lineage going. Because I think it's one of those mutations. I generally don't buy stuff based off of mutations, but I will say I think when it comes to morphs in any species, and I'm talking balls, berms, carpet pythons, all of them, I think the ghost retic is probably one of the prettiest mutations of almost any python species. So
yeah, I mean, like purple albinos are incredible.
Yeah,
just
it's
like
hard to beat.
by themselves, and I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I haven't even seen one of those in person. I would love to see one in person, see what they actually look like as well.
I always like the bone white head ghost. The bone white, the original Sumatran male. He was a bone white head animal or white headed animal, which I would assume would be non-yellow heads or the, because the yellow head retics are pretty common among like that Malaysian, the whole east or the western part of the mainland retic species group is a lot of yellowheads in the mix too.
Sure.
It's funny because when you look at the retics, you'll see silverheads and yellowheads, and then you see the same thing in blood pythons where you get, what is it, like the blackheads and the chromes and the redheads, and then you'll get like Sumatran shorttails where you get chromes and you get blacks, and then you'll get the pumpkin heads. So you see whatever reason, you see all that kind of variation among a lot of the species.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, I like the pumpkin heads, man. Those things are gorgeous.
Oh, yeah,
like the head caramel albinos, like those things are killer. Like you're saying, like the heads just kind of like even brighten those things up even more.
Oh,
like
dude,
I like them more than the caramel albinos. Just give me the heads. And
exactly. Some of the selectively bred ones I've seen, like Dennis has a real cool one.
Nice.
A male, just super high contrast with a bright orange pumpkin head.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah, they're hard to beat. It's definitely one of those situations where I'd rather have the wild type over the morph, because just the wild type is better looking personally.
Heck yeah.
I like that Nick Mutton saying a morph is different. It's not better. It's just different. I think sometimes we lose track of that sometimes.
I didn't have a lot of them. I was out of morphs for a while, and I just took in some boas, and I'm like, damn it, I've got some morphs. But everything else was wild. I was like 100% wild type pretty much. And so now I've got some boa stuff that's tinkering around with Central American stuff. And
hard to beat some of those boas. I got to see some of Dave's adult females, and holy shit.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, they're no joke as far as being pretty. Some of those albinos he has are just bright red and orange and pinks and stuff. I'm like, God, how are boas not more popular?
They're pretty. Yeah, I think they'll definitely. I think they're popping up for sure. Like I got a pair of Bolivians, and these things are like they blow me away. Like they're like blue silver looking. I walk by them, I'm like, holy shit, that thing's nice. Like it's really pretty. And I just got some like Nicaraguan and some Central American, like some leopard stuff. And I don't know. I see them and I'm like, man, their heads are cool. They're just, I think having pythons that, some of the like, especially with like the Asphodeides, like their heads don't stand out besides being black. It looks like a king snake. You get curved python, you get like a big head on it and such like that. So having the boas with the Asphodeides stuff, it's kind of nice to have like head structure and stuff like that to look at.
What's your oldest Woma python?
She's 10. She's a 2015.
Give it a little while. I remember going behind the scenes at the St. Louis Zoo years ago. Yeah. And they had some Womas and blackheads. I'm not kidding. Their heads were the size of a juvenile Burmese python.
Oh, really?
These are like 30 or 40-year-old blackheads and Womas. They were old Womas and blackheads, but they were big as far as like big old head. They had ball pythons with heads the size of a Burmese python. You just would not believe how big these snakes were. But these snakes were all, they were older than I am now, so they were well into their 30s and 40s. Shoot, they had that ball python that was like 62 years old or something when it laid a clutch.
Laid a clutch, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So they have some fossils over there as far as old snakes. So they can get, even Asphodeides can get pretty good sized heads. You just got to give them time. Seems like whenever a python gets old, their heads get beefier.
I feel like anytime you talk to these old heads in the community, they always have a story about how they were just bigger back in their day. Like the first dragons that came in were the size of iguanas.
Yeah.
I talked to Brian Sharp at a show one time, and he talked about a Brazilian rainbow boa at a zoo that was just like giant. I always hear these stories from all the old guys. They were just bigger back then.
Yeah,
Sure.
Last even 15 years, I would see videos of like I saw like a ring python that was like 7 foot long, 6 or 7 foot long. Like it was a big ring python. I saw a Savu python bigger than most Macklot pythons. I mean, this thing was 7 foot, large enough to eat like retired breeder rats. I mean, this thing was huge. You wouldn't believe how big the size on this thing. And then, yeah, I mean, every once in a while you'll get, I mean, people with some giant snakes. You know, I have some giant snakes that I fed like an asshole at one point in my life.
Yeah, I mean, if you feed them, they'll grow.
Oh sure. Yeah, I got a Macklot python, well over 8 foot long. She's a monster.
Damn.
She's a beefcake. And then the male that's the same age as her is like 5.5 foot long.
Right.
And about as big around as like $50 or something like that.
You see some of those old carpet pythons, you're like, holy shit, that thing's huge.
Oh yeah,
it's like the size of a softball, and the head's like a big porterhouse or something. It's wild.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Burmese pythons back in the day, when you see people with them just like in a room, and they'd be like this big around, no exaggeration. They don't even look like they can move anymore. They just devote the entire bedroom to these animals.
It's like a flat tire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like round and flat on the bottom and such. Yeah. I can definitely see them in berms again someday, or a berm for sure. The pines would probably pull it back in for sure.
Yeah.
They're hard to beat, man. I'm not gonna lie. As far as not being a morph guy, they definitely are eye catching for sure.
I had Matt Bowers up here herping back in like late March, early April, and of course, in between spots it was like a 3-hour drive, and even when we were hiking, man, we had so many Burmese python conversations.
Right.
That's, again, one of those species that I've always kind of been on the fence about. Him showing off his animals, the size they're at certain ages, like. I've got a little itch for Burmese pythons right now, but I really fucking hate it. Like I kind of
right. It's funny how that works, isn't it? Where you just like, it's a bad idea, but it just seems like a good idea. You can rationalize it. You're like, well, we can make this work.
Him and Han, maybe just one project. Maybe something that's triple.
He produced some cool stuff too. Some of the leopards that he was producing, like that stuff. That stuff was really cool. Yeah, I always follow him closely. Yeah, he'd go through his little cleaning days where he'd post stuff and show up little photos of all this stuff, and he always had some really cool berms.
No, there's always a collection out there that I call my Achilles heel. Even like I talk about corn snakes, I never want to work with corn snakes, and then I got to see what Jeff Senior did at JMG. I used to always look at his animals, and one day he offered them to me, and I was like, well, of course I want these. These are the coolest corn snakes I've ever seen, but like, again, going back to Matt, that's how I feel like you're talking about his labyrinth stuff, like really taken by his collection.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
The biggest flex of the week on Facebook this week, the clutch of pied blood pythons, I thought was pretty fucking hot. Did you get to see that one?
No, who's that? Was that
John from Braun? I can't remember his name. He does ball pythons too.
I think so. I was trying to say his name. I don't know why I was mispronouncing it. I know I took a screenshot of it.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Wow, nice. Yeah, the bloods, man, they're taking off. It's crazy.
No, I put bloods and boas kind of in the same category. They've been really nice and steady, in my opinion, over the last 20, 25 years
for sure.
in the hobby. Yes, of course, the bloods being produced now are some of the best bloods I've seen ever before, but that's the way it should be for every species now.
Yeah.
Because, again, we've had 20 years to develop what we're working with right now.
Yeah. Is that Elijah? Is that his name?
Elijah Juggernaut, love his work. He did the Batik Druid, Super Druids. Is that how that goes?
Something. I don't know. I just remember being
that's something
where you're like,
he's got.
How did we just go from having like a T plus that and Goldeneye or whatever to being like all this other blood stuff out there. Like it's wild. Like I feel like it's taken off with like the variability.
Clearly, you have not been stalking VPI.com for the last 20 years.
I have been a little bit.
All the Tracy animals.
True.
Yeah, it was inevitable. As those animals started trickling out, the Wrought Iron Project, so on and so forth. I don't know. Bloods right now, I hype up boas a lot, and the boa market's always been really good. The blood market right now, very appealing. A species somewhere between a ball python and a Burmese python size-wise. I know that's a really weird kind of 10 feet in the middle of the two, but no, I like the bloods. I love what I'm seeing in them right now. Like I said, the Druid project that Juggernaut has, really awesome. The blue-eyed leucistic that gains the pattern as it gets larger, I think is awesome. I really am looking forward to seeing what the batik version of that looks like with size, because last time we had him on the podcast, I said, if I was going to make leucistic with pattern, I would do the batik just because I thought it'd make honeycombing or something cool on the side. So seeing him doing that's pretty exciting. I don't know. So I own 2 bloods, and they're both males. So I'm really not accomplishing it.
You're
doing
it
all wrong.
Yeah. My buddy Marshall has one of the males over there, and I'm sure we'll see babies out of that. He's listening. We're gonna get there. Then I've just got this red male at the shop that's embarrassingly big.
He's huge.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember, Forrest had that very large red female.
Yeah, very large.
This thing might be bigger than that one now, man. I almost want to put them together to live out
just
the last
to make
3
giants.
years.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, Volta bloods.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And
I was offered a big one yesterday for $100. A big, it was laying across this room, and you can see where the door was. How high is the door? 36 inches, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this thing was 2-3 times the width of that door, and the guy's what's wrong with his red blood? It's just on Facebook, whatever. Guy lives close by, and he's like, dude, I'll drive it to you and give it to you for $100 if you want it. I'm like, how's it temper me? He's like, it's not nice. I was still kind of tempted, but it's a terrible time of year for me to bring an animal in because we're going on vacation next month. Usually I quarantine everything in the garage, and it's just too hot right now. So usually I try to seasonally do it. But yeah, it was a big red female too, and I'm like, man, that's a pretty animal. Hopefully someone gives her a good spot.
Yeah, my big one's not aggressive, but I also don't trust it for shit. I don't know if it's just old blood pipe mentality where I think they're all mean, but he'll let me pick him up. I never really use a hook for him. He doesn't really say he's going to hurt me, but I think I'm going to go in there the wrong day. I'm going to not take it serious. And I think he's going to tag me, and I'm going to hate everything about it.
Yeah, they're fast. It's crazy how fast those things are for how big they are. And they have those twitchy little eyes too. And I think that's part of it where you're they kind of side eye you, and you're like,
yep.
You could totally get me from right here if you wanted to. I played with some bloods. I don't know any bloods right now, but of course I was going down that wormhole the other day. I was like, those are really pretty. It's stop. Don't do it. Don't need anything else. Right
I know I get on Facebook or Instagram and see Kara Norris and stuff, and you see some of her bloods and her short tails, and you're just like, oh my God, just what I need to open up and see right now. See stuff like that. And then Nick was another guy, Nick Bottini. He had tons of cool stuff, especially
he had so much stuff. Yeah, I know. I just love it. He'd show pictures and stuff, man. You'd comment on it. He'd always comment back right away and such, or comment on your stuff for sure. I never met him personally, but yeah, always seemed like he has in the right spot for that.
Right.
Yeah. No. So
you want to see a baby Woma quick? They're moving.
Yeah, throw a baby Woma.
Sure.
I got a question I want to throw at both you guys, mainly William. Look at this little animal first.
What kind of males do you have available, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
For Womas?
Yes, Womas.
I mean, I've got babies recently produced, but I don't have any adults. I need them.
Guy.
I like that.
I'm talking about Bender too.
That's kind of what I'm talking about, the clear bellies where they have they're orange, but they're kind of clear still.
Okay.
Yeah.
but they kind of got this weird little zebra pattern to them.
No, that's a good looking snake. My banding, I don't have that. My dark banding's wider than yours on most of my Woma stuff, and I like how that doesn't.
Okay.
That's what you're talking about. Doesn't go all the way down to the belly.
Yep, it kind of stops and fades
Yeah.
right there. Kind of comes up.
Cool.
It almost looks like a Swiss line blackhead a little bit.
Yeah, I was actually going to say a blackhead body. Yeah. So, William, so this year you're doing well. You got a lot of new species you produced for the first time. What's your holdbacks looking like? Like, are you going to have to hold back a bunch of babies this year? Or are you at the point where, you raised all this stuff up to produce babies to sell?
Kind of to sell. I mean, there's some stuff. Believe it or not, there's a lot of ball python stuff I got. As long as if I make good enough or pretty enough stuff, I might keep back quite a few ball pythons. But as far as miscellaneous stuff, carpet pythons, I'm sure there'll be at least some sort of group I'll keep back, because a lot of that's like tiger albino stuff, tiger Darwin stuff. And then inlands, I guess it just depends what they look like, because I have such a big group of inlands, man. They have to be pretty spectacular for me to want to keep something back.
Nice.
So I already got a decent group of them. I'm one of those, if I have trouble breeding a pair, the most logical decision after that is let's just get more until I get a pair that's willing to do it.
Sure.
And then my problem is also not moving out the ones that aren't doing it. Those slowly peter out.
Yeah, those things are impressive. They're cool in person, man. People see inlands, you're like, whatever. But when you see them in person, man, they are really, really cool.
Especially if you're someone who's in the morphs, if you like axanthic looking animals, more of the silvers and blacks and grays and stuff, you'll like the inlands. The inlands are definitely a natural axanthic looking animal for the most part. Sometimes you'll get them, I have a male who's starting to develop some oranges. They'll get some oranges in the back of the pattern, the background of the pattern. So that's pretty neat looking.
Nice. Yeah, I like the ones that have the higher red, the rust kind of pattern that comes out. And stuff like those guys are pretty good.
So what kind of, pull out the males that are available.
My guys?
Hey, asshole, I thought I was selling you a woman.
Well, you said you're keeping them all back, so I'm
no, I never said that.
Okay. Because I need more. I only have one male Woma python. That's all I have. I have 4 females.
This is a male.
Uh-oh.
But I think he's staying here because I need a male too.
On, you don't need more males. How many Woma? You got how many Womas now?
Not too many.
Not too many.
I'll find you. I'm sure we can chat. I'm sure we've got something, but yeah, they turned out pretty good. I'm curious to see what the other ones are, because these are the ones that have the real wide bands on them, kind of deal. I would look for them with the a lot of cream in between. Where they kind of have that.
So, out of curiosity, with all your breeder animals, Womas, what are all the lines that you know of? I know the Womas weren't known for their lines for the most part.
Yeah, so I've got the Justin Julanders, are my original ones that came from Art of Valleys, and so that's a hot line, is the art stuff.
Did his originate from Python Pete?
So I think his actually came from Todd Trowbridge. I'm not sure where Todd got his from. So my understanding is Todd sold most of his when he retired, he sold all of his animals to Art, and then Art took him over from there. So I know that's where he had all those orange animals from. But I remember Python Pete was back then. There was also the Barry Miller line.
Yeah,
it was real big. Rare Earth had some nice stuff. Like Rare Earth was always my passion back in the day. Is seeing their ads, and they had a blackhead, a Woma, a frilled dragon, or they had the freckles. The freckle monitors, or the Ackies and the Kimberly Rocks and such. And they had a good line of Womas as well too. So mine, I don't know. I need to find out more about mine, because I've got a female a pair from Keith McPete as well, and she's really pretty. She's really light, but she's got a real pink and orange belly on her as well. And then the rest of them is just kind of stuff I've been holding back that I've made from Justin for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah, and kind of trying to develop that line, because I don't really see anything else out there like it for the most part. So,
right.
I hate to say it, my Woma pythons over the years, I've never really gone to a guy because I found one that he had I liked. A lot of the Womas I've picked up over the years have just been at the trade shows.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
See something. No real good lineage, to be honest with you.
No, none of the Womas really had it.
It's gotten so muddy.
Yeah, there hasn't been a whole lot of lineage on Womas. The only locality Woma I heard about or hear about is the Tamara or Tammy or Bender. Do you know the locality of the Woma? Lucas has them, and I think
I
starts
don't.
with a T.
Tamika? No, that's the
Tamika is
blackhead. I think that's the white lip. Yeah, I don't know what that one is. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he does have those.
There's few. That's the only locality Woma python I know of, as far as and I don't even know. Would that be a Western or an Eastern type?
I don't know. I'm not even sure, honestly. It just sucks when you're on Facebook and you're like on a Woma group and someone posts one up. You're like, that's the one I want. I want one of those, and then you realize they're in Australia.
Right.
Yeah, like
I say that all the time with Australian animals.
I know. I'm like, I just block you people.
Yeah,
so
and then they let me, or they invite me to join me in their like Australian python group. Like one was an inland python group, so you get all these like what is it called?
Crazy stuff. The silver peppers.
Yeah, silver peppered and all that. And I goes like, if we can't have it, I don't need to see this. Yeah.
let me just show you one of the bigger girls what they look like when they get up. This is the girl that she got me on the fingertip. Like I've never been bit in the finger, like where my fingertip went into her mouth.
Oh, that's
so I couldn't push my fingers down at all, like down to get it out. So here's the bigger girl here. So she's very yellow and kind of has this different banding. So that's kind of what they look like when they get bigger.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything that looks like that.
Well, Dave, is most of your stock primarily bins, or how much is it from outside of bins?
What did Ben have? I think Ben had like...
Oh, he had like 7 or something?
I thought it was like 7, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a whole Freedom or ARS rack.
Every one that Ben has, I still have. Other ones that I acquired.
Damn, those animals are still breeding strong for you?
Dude, the biggest of the bastards, man, are still really big clutches. I only breed them every other year a lot of times.
Those snakes have to be I think those snakes have to be like 15, 16 years old.
I think Todd just bred Doug Price's animals.
Years old that had a clutch. I can keep breeding these a little longer, man.
Oh yeah, you can keep So they
Todd just bred Doug Price's animals that were 19 years old for Womas and got viable clutch on them this year.
Yeah,
nice.
He's like they're at least 19 years old for sure.
Right.
I will say a couple of the bigger ones that were in Ben's collection, I will probably retire. I will retire in the next couple of years. They build follicles. They build more follicles every year than the year beforehand. They eat good. They breed. I mean, if it starts building, I usually pair them. I don't know. I don't think they've aged out yet. I think I'd probably do like 2 or 3 more breedings before I even worry about a thing like that.
Oh man, you could probably breed. Yeah, you breed them well into their 20s. If you have them that long.
Yeah, because I think 18 and 19 I didn't even breed them. 20 I did breed them. Then I don't think I bred them in 21 or 22, and then I bred them again in 23, and then I had a light breeding in 24 because of the move. So because I did a light year this year, I'll probably go a little heavier next year. Yeah, I don't want to be greedy, but 50 to 100 Woma eggs a year sounds really nice.
Nothing small for Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
that's right.
That's a perfect number for them. That's another thing. Like, I do a lot of smaller shows, and when you're at a smaller show and you got a Woma on your table, you get a lot of people who come by that says they've never even seen one in person before.
I was going to say, do you ever see them at the shows, really?
It's very rare. You'll get a flipper now and again that'll have like a sub-adult on his table like we talk about. If I go to Tinley, I can guarantee I can walk out with a Woma or 2.
Yeah.
I still am trying to figure out the mystery of this guy in Missouri that has
I heard you mention that.
Very large collection.
Yeah.
And he sells to one pet store wholesale, and every once in a while someone tries to get in with them and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Wow.
But I met him one time at a show. It was like one of the smaller Show Me Reptile ones in Missouri, and he was telling me about the scale of his collection. I thought he gave me the impression he had maybe up to 100 breeders in his collection.
Jesus, that's crazy.
I could be adding to his legend right now, but I hear he had a very large collection. But again, he sells to one pet store every year, which respect. You got that relationship. Don't fuck it up. But I mean,
100. How many females? He's got 50 females or something like that. Probably 75 females.
It was one conversation. I meant to get his phone number. He maybe handed me a card. He's known of.
Cherry pick some of those babies.
That's the thing. I'd love to just cherry pick. Pay a little extra. Just let me come by, pick out a few every year. I'll be happy to do so. I got to work on that contact. We all know someone who knows him, but no one really knows him. It's one of those deals.
Oh, don't you love those relationships? It's like someone else you got to contact to get into contact with the guy to get the stuff you'd like or interested in.
Yep.
And then usually what happens is they tell me, I'll give him your information, and it's up to him if he wants to contact you. And I go, well, then they never end up contacting me.
Right.
Because they don't want to deal with anyone as new people or anything. So,
no, I don't blame them. You know what? Yeah. MJ's going to like this. I don't know, has Kyle Frost done any podcasting yet?
Why does that name sound familiar? Who's that?
Yeah, weren't we just talking about Kyle Frost ahead of time? He did bows for a while. He's done a few different things. If he's watching this, you guys are going to feel like real assholes. Hey.
I don't know if I know Kyle Frost.
You're okay. I'll send you some of his.
I'm excused now. Yes, send him down.
That's fine.
I'd love to review his catalog.
Yeah. Well, so this is gonna sound like kind of a douchey thing, and I don't want it to sound this way, but everybody's really diversifying their collections into Womas, blackheads, rough scales, Brettles. Is it really going to be different if we're all literally going after the same four species? And I know not everyone's going to be successful, but when you talk about mainstream species, the way the collections look, they got a Dumerals boa in the group. They got this, they got that. Like, a lot of people are kind of chasing a similar dream right now.
Yeah, no, that's usually what happens, man. Usually people, that's why the miscellaneous stuff goes in with this high price you see nowadays with a lot of it. And then as soon as a bunch of those other people start raising up those animals, or if they're able to be imported and there's they're popular and people start importing them again on top of people breeding them, then you start seeing that price start plummeting and stuff. I mean, it's no different than Morris. It's the only thing species. I think the only thing that keeps a lot of species safe is either you can't breed it that young, or most people are against breeding stuff super young. Most people are pretty prone on keeping it, because I remember ball python people breeding Woma pythons at 2 years old, females. So, I mean, that means you're pumping the shit out of them. Rather than breeding them that long, I don't know. But, I mean, so, yeah, it's like it's all ebb and flow, man. I mean, at some point, a lot of this miscellaneous stuff will go down in price and won't be – people will sizzle on it, and then something else will catch, some kind of train or some kind of popularity boost, and it'll happen all over again. I'm just waiting for stuff like some of these scrub pythons and Boland's python hype to die down some, and people don't care about them no more.
So you can get some of those, right?
Yeah, there's more. Like, I would love to get tandem bars, but I just don't want to get them at the price I know people want to sell them at. So,
Like I like that people. I hope people want to breed Womas and blackheads, other stuff. I think blackheads are way ahead of Womas, honestly, as far as being refined. For sure, you got guys like Jason Hood and Derek and some of the other guys that are producing and Jim Sargent, producing some really crazy blackheads already and morphs and kind of bringing that stuff in. Where Womas just need to get refined and more refined and selective breeding. Like, it's not going to get much farther than that, but you can still produce really nice animals. The problem is when people take ugly animals and go dump out, produce some less attractive animals and throw those out into the marketplace. But more people breeding them just means hopefully more better looking animals in general. And for Womas, I'm like, cool. Well, let me get my hands on those because they're not easy to find really nice animals. You can find above plus grade ones that are nice, but it's hard to find the real A+ stuff that you're looking for. Either they don't get sent out or Most people, or they just get passed around the group of people that know each other and such. So that should change soon. But that's kind of what happened back in early 2000s. Everyone just started producing Womas to produce them, and it's like, all right, now I made Womas because I can get $600 for them or whatever. And then, so I think what you'll see is like the nice ones are still going to sit up there, and people that want them are going to spend that money for them. And it's not crazy money by any means, but it should. It's just problem is you're going to go on like if you got Work Market now, I think there's like 50 Womas available. So,
well,
I
think another thing too is a lot of these guys will get this species, they'll get excited about them. If they do get to the point of breeding them, then you start realizing, well, if you breed a white-lipped python, you breed a savu python, you breed a lot of these like very non-colorful animals, then you're just breeding that species. You're not really creating a new morph or a new combination, and that's what keeps like the ball python train going. It's because there's always
for sure
something new, and even stuff like the blood pythons, and with some miscellaneous stuff like carpets, scrubs have that potential. Even just normal wild type blood pythons, we've seen selective breeding with them and how far they've gotten in the last 20 years, So,
yeah, no, absolutely.
There's a bunch of those species that I'm sure could like gain like scrubs. I think scrubs I can see taking the same route as like a carpet pythons.
Yeah.
Where, at least I hope that's the route it takes.
Yeah.
My fear is the scrub pythons will either take the carpet python route, which hit and miss on if that's good or not, depending on who the carpet guy is.
Right.
Or it goes the green tree python route, and then all the scrub pythons are just one species.
Right. You just start throwing them all together anyways, right.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference, I think, between a carpet python and a scrub python, too, in general.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my opinion on the species stuff. I definitely think they'll hit a pinnacle, and then I think they'll all start dipping down. I don't think they'll get down to. I guess it depends on the species. Some might dip lower than others, but I'm sure all of them will take some sort of hit.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And just because of this, I don't think there's ever going to be enough supply for the demand. We even talk Woma pythons, 2017, 2018, they were fairly cheap. A lot of times you see them on sale for under $200. Males at like $150, females at $1 or $2.25, sometimes less than that. I think a lot of the price spikes on some of that stuff, even like we talk Dumeral boas, I bring up a lot. I think some of that miscellaneous stuff that, honestly is some of the more eye-catching animals in the industry. I think they're at a good spot right now. I think they're going to stay consistent at that spot. Yes, a mutation might hit one of those groups, and that could change things a little bit. But no, dude, I think a lot of those prices are fixed now. I don't think there's going to be any reason for that stuff to come down anytime soon.
Well, that stuff is – I think some of that stuff's okay. I'm talking about like $10,000 Bolin's python, or what is it, like $7,500 Moluccans or insert whatever rare. Some of those species that are still going for just astronomical prices.
Are they selling out every year?
Nope.
No?
They're trading. I don't think they're selling, but they're trading. Here, you do this farm work for me.
Will they trade for Womas?
I think some of them, from what I understand, especially with the Bolin's python, it's like, will you trade
That's a big price
basins?
tag.
Would you trade
farm That's all
work or something? Some people are actually offering like labor, for Bolin's pythons. I've heard a few people offering to help on around their place or whatever like that to work them off. So
for what, a year?
I'll take your garbage out.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Well,
Jesus.
William,
I mean,
you're going to get Bolins at some point, right?
Maybe one day, but I just don't. I actually would prefer getting them when nobody cares about them anymore. But I don't know if Bolins ever got to that point where no one cared. It's just, I guess they were imported enough that most people, that was a dream species. Now it's.
Well, I think they were imported and not produced.
Yeah,
was a big part of it. Where they kept bringing them in, but they weren't any being captive produced. Where it's like you import something else, and all of a sudden it's like it takes a little bit, but all of a sudden you start seeing them hit the market, or you see them start getting produced, so it kind of brings them down a little bit. But yeah, that's a big price tag. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it, like what a pair is. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Fuchs had one, man. I've never seen that thing. He got a big one, but he only paid like $2,500 for his. Him and Jeff Nemanius had them, and I mean, they are incredible. Like, we're just like pulling this thing out. I was like, it was probably like 7 feet at the time or so, and they are. I mean, they're special animals for sure. They're impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd pay that money for them, but
I find just as many other species.
But if I had a litter of basins or something like that, and like, hey, I got basins, I'm like, yeah, I'll swap you some basins for some Bolins, and then I'd probably have no issues doing that.
Right.
You know, where you're playing with like kind of monopoly per money at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't think he's updated it, but Quebeca was showing off his Bolins, and he was talking about follicle development in one of his episodes. I want to say like a month or two ago. I want to say he had his female over 20 millimeters. In the Bolins community, and I know there's only a few people breeding them, do you hear anything about people ultrasounding that species to kind of keep an eye on stuff?
That Mark, oh shit, Pro Exotics, they were doing it. I remember they were ultrasounding their Bolins and stuff. So yeah, I know there was quite Dave and Tracy Barker. I'm sure they were. I know they had an ultrasound, but I'm sure they were ultrasounding the Bolins. It's not that no one was doing it. It's just people just, I don't know, they just slapped this the ball python regiment and they applied the same thing to Bolin's pythons, and a lot of times people wreck those snakes. Rather it was keeping them too hot year round or not cooling them down enough, or I guess in this case maybe not having enough males, alternating males, or shit. If it was me, I would have just took 2 males and left them in there until something happened. You know, yeah. I don't even know. Do we even know Bolin males? I'm assuming they don't combat, because if I'm not mistaken, I think I've seen Mark and Flynn both post videos of multiple males sitting in there, and I think they just kind of, it's like a mating ball almost.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well too. Yeah, I think it was Scott Flood, right? He's producing them.
Yeah, he's producing them.
I think he's like, he has a higher male count than female count. I'm pretty sure for his group.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a breeding project.
Right.
You put all those things together in a cage, you're like, there's $70,000 right there. And it's like, Jesus Christ, that's crazy. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah, so I've heard this argument of more males with Bolins, but I don't think there's a species that we work with. If you had extra males now, you wouldn't be more successful. Even in the boa community, there's a lot of people that say 2 males to every 1 female. Not a lot of people. I don't know if we're allowed to say his name anymore, but it was in Jeremy Stone's video he did back in the day. Yeah, no, I don't think anytime if you have an extra male around, you're not going to probably be more successful with the species. I think if I think of any bad breeding year I've ever had, no matter what species I've worked with, it always comes down to lack of males.
Yeah.
Right. I got a question with Dave. You might know more about this. With green anacondas, do they see more success with group breeding or individual breedings, or is it any differentiation between the two?
Well, here's a question. How serious is that sperm plug with green anacondas? Like, does the second or third or fourth male even matter if you're getting a nice big sperm plug in there from the first male?
I have no idea with the greens. It seems like, you know, I remember hearing the whole satellite situation. Satellite males are sometimes the smaller and less mature male ends up sneaking in there to copulate over the big or the larger and more dominant male, depending on how big the area is and how many more males are present that distract the larger males. So I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, especially if you can have dual sire clutches where you have multiple males, you know.
Well, and you don't know you have dual sire until we get to the point of the mutation game in any species, whether or not it's working.
Unless you get it tested, you can always.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It should.
You know, if you're going for like green, I mean, if you're not trying to go for a morph, I mean, you're just trying to produce a wild type.
Right.
If you're not trying to selectively breed them, then be like, yeah, whichever male gets her, that's great. Like, I think for green anacondas, if you're just producing green anacondas, right? So it doesn't matter which male gets in there. You probably just want the younger one in there for viability reasons, I would think.
Yeah, I don't. We talked about how Womas, you don't have any like lineage, or there's not any like big names on it. Same thing in
Yeah.
anacondas. You know, they were imported for $200 for so long that there was never really a line or a lineage of green anaconda in the industry. At least that's something that was sought after.
Is that a Weimaraner?
Yeah, it's a little wine runner.
Color is he? Is he
He's
black?
well, they call him blue, but he's
The
black.
blue? Yeah. He's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, no, we got that one, and we got a gray one. She's sleeping on the couch over
Okay.
there. He likes to.
Yeah, my in-laws had Weimies.
Nice.
I always like the dark ones, man. They're pretty, for sure.
He's beautiful.
Yeah, he's gorgeous. I just saw his eyes. I was like, yeah, he's really pretty. Nice.
Yeah.
I got a bull litter this year. First time.
Oh, yeah, what kind?
I got a T plus crossed with an Inca T plus, and I got no Inca T pluses, so I ended up getting 3 babies, and I got an albino, so I got a T plus, a normal, and an Inca.
Okay.
So just missed on the other one. So that was the first time I was playing around with them. So
well,
I was
you have
expecting
Inca.
more.
Inca's a great pattern, man. I'm really a big fan
Yeah,
of the project.
The normal is cool.
Gorgeous. I only have 2 Incas in my entire collection. I wish I had 20. And both my males are okay males, but Inca is really blowing up in the boa scene.
Nice.
So it's a bummer that you missed that.
Yeah, I've got that. One of Warren's buddies, he passed some bows down that kind of just work some projects for him.
Very
so he
cool.
gave me, what else? I've got a Motley Inca. That thing's pretty cool. He's like solid black with some like white belly on him and such. He's kind of interesting.
Does it have like an oil slick kind of look to it, like a sheen to it compared to your other bows?
Yeah, for sure.
I like that about that. I got 2 Motley Incas too.
Yeah, they're cool. And then I've got a plasma and a male, and then also some orange-tailed hypo leopards from Warren as well.
My God, how many bows do you have?
I got a lot of
bows.
bows. I just went from like not having bows to having like 8 boas or something like that. Then we've got a leopard that's het blood, het hypo. I think het anery too, as well
God.
too. So
Are we going to lose a python guy to the boa community? I'm getting vibes.
I'm kidding. I'm sticking around, but they are fun though. They're definitely cool. Definitely interesting animals. I don't know what to put together, so I'll have to message you and see what I should be trying to pair up eventually, if any of it, or seek something else out to put to these guys.
Yeah, I put my Costa Ricans together like 2 months ago.
Nice.
I wasn't planning on breeding them, but again, I just happened to put the ultrasound on them. I had 2 females side by side in a rack. They both hit 18 millimeters at the same time. I put the male in with the one. He didn't show interest. Put the male with the other one. He locked her a little bit, but then I checked about a month later. Follicle development didn't move at all. So I was probably on the wrong side of breeding. I like to try to get a male in a little earlier than that. I honestly didn't even plan on breeding them at all, even though they're big enough and old enough. But with the move and everything, everything was a little too chaotic when it was time for them to go. I have to check them again tomorrow. I may re-put them together because they're het T positive also, and the male's a visual T positive.
Nice.
T positive Costa Ricans are beautiful.
Those things are wild, dude.
I haven't done a lot of dwarf boas.
What's that?
I haven't done a lot of dwarf boas over the years, to be honest with you. Like, I wish when they were cheap, I cared about them.
Right.
We all.
Expensive, and I care about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I cared more about a lot of this other stuff, species, when they were $100, $200, you know.
Yeah, including Bolins.
Yeah.
The ring pythons were like $150. Yeah. Yeah, the Costa Rican stuff's wild. I see the picture of Warren's, and the head patterns on those things are incredible. I mean, they're
gorgeous.
They're so cool.
Love the contrast, love the dark browns, love that like soft gray. Ring pythons. William, you have rings, right?
Yep.
And
of course.
You?
I don't. No, I do not. I'm afraid of them.
You're afraid of them?
I'm just joking. No, I never got into them too much. I think they're pretty. I don't know. I always liked them as babies, and then
you had southern white lips, didn't you? Or do you still have?
I had a couple from Lisa, but yeah, those went astray as well.
Oh,
I know. No, what the real kicker is that I actually own the black white lips. What were those ones? The ones from that Dan brought in. That are from what the hell? It starts with a T as well. We're stuck on these T's. These T localities are killing us.
Right.
So I had a pair of those guys, and then so when I got my Woma, when I got my rough scales, they turned out to be 2 males. I had to go find a female. So I finally tracked down a female while I needed some cash. So I sold my white lips, my southern white lips that were super tame to Jeff the Manius. And all the southerns that he's produced were from that's from my pair that I sold to him.
Okay, cool.
I remember seeing which is great because he's the greatest dude ever. Like I love that guy.
I know,
but like it's like kicking the nuts every year. He's just is like, I got another clutch of white lips. I'm like those were mine. Yeah, they were cool.
I tell people, I go, some of those animals aren't hard to breed. I think a lot of times people just had missexed animals. That's what I had for the longest time.
It's probably true.
I had two. I bought originally I got the group from Ben, who lost the labels to him, so we all had it, and they were subadults, so we had to resex them all. So he popped them while the old snake bag trick where you put half of them in the bag and you pop them. Yeah. No, we didn't want to bleed, so he popped them all as female. Well, I'm stupid. I don't ever resex things. Once it's sex, unless something suspicious is going on, I usually never resex it. So I remember for years I was breeding the one female white lip pretty consistently. Anytime I would try to breed her, she would breed. But the other two, I'm just like, man, why won't they breed? And I would throw the males in, and they wouldn't. Every once in a while, if one got tired of another, it would pop it, bite it, but it would never wrap it or like fight or anything. And I think it was because they were in a big enough tub that they could get away from each other. So, but then I start messing with ring pythons, which are essentially like a dwarf white lip.
Yeah.
And, man, they breed like really easily. Like if you have a pair, I've never had a problem with them copulating, breeding, and going the distance. Getting good eggs is different, but as far as that, breeding seems to be pretty straightforward and easy. And like with Jeff, Ryan, Lisa, and all them, it's not that I'm taking away from what they're doing, but I'm like, man, these don't seem that hard to breed as long as you have a good pair. And then one day I decided to sex one of those females, and the only way I could sex it without bleeding was feeding a rat and then probe it real quick. Well, what I had to do was, this is something Ryan brought up with the Papuan pythons, is sometimes those plugs people talk about is really shed hemipenes. Sometimes if they have shitty sheds, those hemipenes build up. Well, that female or that male had that issue too, where it stopped and it probed what most people would say a female. Well, if I just twist and pushed a little bit, you heard that pop, like it popped through the skins. And then that sucker probed like a whole finger deep.
Huh.
Yeah.
Would that keep that male from breeding, you think?
Oh, if he inverts,
like the sheds and stuff, like.
Well, maybe if he had like a overabundance of it, I'm sure it could like maybe hinder it a little bit. But I think once he inverts them, I think that would be like kind of like anything. It would kind of shove all the junk out of the way or something. At least I would assume, because Ryan said he's never had a problem with it. I've never really noticed it too much because I've never really ran into that problem. I might have just given up. Like if it wasn't for Ryan talking about it, I probably would have just stopped there. It would have been like, this clearly is a female.
Yeah.
But and then the one right above, because I have them all in those big Vision boa rack, the white lips. And the bottom one I probed, and then the top one right below the breeding female, he started pacing back and forth. So I knew immediately after looking at it, I was like, hey, you must be, because I knew the female was cycling because the other male was breeding her. And I was like, So I just raised 2 giant males or got these 2 giant males up there. I've been trying to put them together. And like I said, they didn't even combat necessarily. So most people probably have them 2 males together and not even know they're 2 males.
It's probably good. Yeah, it's probably wouldn't doubt
especially if they're nasty. I mean, no one wants to try to put your hands and restrain a white lip sex.
Right.
At least I
you get it from both ends, really, on those too.
Yeah.
You get bit or you get sprayed, one or the other.
Oh yeah.
Or just peed on or something else, and it's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, I want to do it with.
Why am I doing this with my life right now? Like,
I want to do it with the Timor python. I want to probe her just to make sure, but I'm like, she's so big and nasty. I'm like, I don't want to deal with her. I don't want to. She's probably 7 foot, but I mean, she's 7 foot, as big as thick as my wrist. I mean, she's thick. Damn. She's girthy for sure. Yeah, and she's mean too. She'll
just have Dave over.
Yeah, she'll bypass the old pissing on you and just bite you. Especially if you just look at her for too long.
This is why people breed ball pythons.
Yeah. One of my nastiest bites I've ever gotten was from a ball python. I peeked my head into a tub, and this female launched out of the tub and bit me on the lip. I'm like, God damn it, that hurt. I go, you son of a bitch. And then it ate right afterwards. I was like, good Lord.
Did you have to like go forward to like push him out?
No. She ended up letting go as soon as she bit the lip, pulled it a little bit, and then just popped out or popped her mouth open off of it. But yeah,
that's like the Woma. I was like, you're looking pretty, and I went to just move it because I was like, I'm going to grab you out, take you outside, take a photo. And I just went to grab it, and he goes, wham, right on my fingertip. My whole, like, up to here is in his mouth. And I'm just like, well, and then he just wraps my wrist. And I'm like, well, I can't go forward to come back out because it's just going to keep getting deeper. And so, yeah, they're going to go to the bathtub and soak it on some water for a little while. It's like,
I don't know about your blackheads, but I can't even touch my blackheads without them wanting to immediately wrap something up.
Oh, yeah.
At least with human
Mine don't bite at all, though.
Yeah, I don't want to test that. Actually, I have been bitten once on the finger, right on the cuticle. The female got me, and I was like, damn, that hurt.
Yeah, it's ouch. Yeah, mine are pretty chill, honestly. And my Womas aren't bad either. They're all pretty chill.
Yeah, I know Ben's wasn't. I don't know if Dave calmed him down or any, but they were pretty nasty.
Yeah. Like, I raised all those guys.
Yeah, they're not as bad, but they were the worst. That was honestly like my least favorite thing to clean when I first got to Ben's place. Like, it was the last rack I always did when everything else got done. Like, because, yeah, you'd open up that tub. It was that you had them in the dark gray ARS tub, so you couldn't even see if they were at the front of the tub when you opened it.
Exactly.
And they came out after you.
Oh, yeah. I have a picture. I don't know if I still have it, but I had a picture of one of his Womas wrapped up a spray bottle. Because I tried to use it to push the head of it away, and it just wrapped up the spray bottle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, they don't discriminate on what they decide they want to eat.
Now, mine was chewing on a water bowl the other day. It was just like bit onto it, like trying to feed him. Like, it's over here, you know. Like I said, food drive is pretty crazy. Right. The boas, I don't know. I didn't raise these boas, you know, and they're some pretty decent size adults. I mean, they're all like 8-9-year-old adults. So I'm always kind of questionable about these guys. I'm like, you look cool, and then I'm like, you don't look super cool right now. Like, you're kind of, I don't know. And I've got them in, you know, cages with like cork bark and stuff, so they just grab everything, you know. So you're like, the only end that's not holding something's the head. So it's like trying to get them out sometimes it's definitely interesting for sure, especially like this big leopard and T+ girl. It's definitely a little bit of a handful.
Something about the boa localities, though, they always seem like they're the most sassiest. I got some Pearl Islands that are horrendous as far as touching. If you touch them, they just get real food aggressive, start trying to wrap something up. I had the male wrap himself up. He got so excited, he just wrapped himself up. I was like, good Lord. I go, you guys are psychotic.
I was going to ask if you had boas. So is that what you have, the Pearls?
Islands? I got Pearl Islands. I wouldn't mind hogs. The more I keep getting on Instagram, I keep seeing people with some hog islands. And I'm like, good God, that might be another one I might need to get. I'm into the, when I was looking into boa localities, I was looking at, it was Pearl Islands or Argentines. And, I have the space for the Pearl Islands, so I think I'll go with the Pearl Islands. I was always a big fan of the Argentines, of that guy down in Florida, Bob.
Yeah.
The guy who has the pink, the high pink X
the
or
Max
whatever
Pinks
they are.
Or whatever.
Yeah, Max Pinks or something. Those were always, I thought, were phenomenal. He'd have these big old females with just big old splotches of pink on them. I go, wow, that's impressive.
So yeah, I'm more of like, I like the exanthic kind of stuff. I like black and white stuff. Yeah, so just wild type thing. What's her name?
Allison.
Allison. Boom, nailed it. Yeah. So I went to her place one time to pick up a couple of cages are from her, the 6-footers, and she just switched to new cages. But she gave me a little tour of her collection, and I was like, holy shit. Like the Argentines are crazy. And they were just like the black and white ones. And man, those things they were smoking. Like I haven't seen a Max Pink in person. I'm sure they look awesome as well too. But
Yeah.
like oh my god, the heads on those things were just massive, and they were just awesome. They're incredible animals.
Amarelli was another one I always was really interested in. That was one that I was always Argentine and Amarelli are both right there for me as far as
you should get those. They stay smaller.
Yeah. You need to get with Matt with Philly Herpological because his southern the Brazilian favorite.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Amarellis, yeah. I don't know why.
I love the northern Brazilian stuff. Northern Brazilian's beautiful.
I like
bigger
better than a lot of the southern Brazilian stuff, to be honest with you. But that's just me.
Yeah. You like it more than southern Brazilian? You said.
I find that I've seen more reduced patterning with the southern Brazilians. I've noticed more diamonding and more like split backs. I like all that. You were talking about black and whites. You got the Longicata stuff.
She had those too, and man, those things. Those blew me away. I was like, they're kind of muddy looking, and I saw hers in person. The heads on those things were just like so black and white. They were incredible. Like she had really pretty ones.
When I realized we were talking about the same person, when I shouted out her name because I thought you were talking about her Longicata stuff, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, her whole collection in general. Yeah, they didn't live too far from me, so we get up there and catch up every once in a while and go see. Now they left and went up to Colorado.
That's awesome. You get any field herping in this year?
Nothing on the books right now. We're going to Italy for 10 days in July, just for a family trip and stuff. So once we get back, I can refocus and see. I wouldn't mind. I'd like to do some West Texas for sure.
Fair.
I haven't been out there too much, so it's only they say 6 hours, but it took us like 8 hours to get out there last time. So again, not terrible. So I'd be down for that. I'm definitely going to do Carpet Fest out of Rocklandia for the Southern Carpet Fest or whatever. So we'll be out there for that.
When is that?
And that's in October, I believe. I can send you the dates for that. Yeah, you should come down. It's a good time. Good snow. You can roll that one in.
I would love to take a tour of all the fests. Like, I want to go to Carpet Fest. I want to go to Kluber Fest, Croc Fest. Like, I wouldn't mind, like, that being my thing, just going and hanging out at all these things.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Are you doing Arlington?
You mean Dallas?
Or Dallas? Yeah, Dallas. Whatever.
There's so many restrictions on so many things. I don't know if I'll be at that show ever again.
Yeah, same. I haven't gone since they changed it.
Yeah, not trying to be a hater. I did really well in Arlington. Dallas has just been kind of tough. But I did talk to a couple people that did a lot better last time, but the regulations are hard, man.
It's a weird one. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. They're like, I haven't even gone. Like, I'd just go up to Bill's place or something like that just to see people or whatever. But yeah, I have no interest in going to the show, which is sad because Arlington was always a fun trip. We just had up for that.
Where you got to see a lot of old timers too. That's why that's the only reason I went to Arlington. It was the only place in modern time that I was able to see Dave or Tracy, I guess at the time,
Yeah.
It was the only places I could see some of these legends, or Trumbauer or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had rough scales on the table, and Dave walked up and he's like, Carinata. That's cool. I was like, thanks, man. That's about all I got to say about that.
Right.
But it was so cool. I was like, that's pretty awesome. Cool.
Right.
Thank you, man. So, yeah, for sure. No, I agree. Yeah, that was always like Arlington always had some good. There was always good stuff to see there and stuff, and the hotel was easy and fun and everything. But yeah, the regulations on the Dallas stuff it's too bad. It sucks.
Yeah,
because that's everything I like. It's all I really want to go see for the most part. But you can't have.
I mean, I was talking to Jeff Byers when I was in Oklahoma City over the weekend, and I think he'd even mentioned that they were forced to take their green tree pythons off the table. So like I said, really weird rules down there.
Yeah, that's weird. There's no need for that.
Yeah,
that's what they should be putting out.
But yeah, I think it was anybody who had anything that you weren't supposed to have at the show, you were allowed to have it. But if you wanted to sell it, like people were like driving 20 miles away or some shit like that to sell it in a parking lot.
So I heard.
Yeah, that's sketchy.
The old school way.
Yeah. I don't have 20 minutes to drive 20 miles in opposite directions for anything.
No.
Yeah.
Well, What do you think, guys? Did we just peak? You guys want to fit any other conversations before we call this? You guys want to call it?
I like talking about Williams boas. No,
The only
I'm good. It's been fun. I'm definitely not switching teams. Don't worry.
okay,
mean,
I was a little worried.
I've got a short list, and there's more pythons than boas on it. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
What's
well,
the-
you
what's
know
the
what? There's
python
always room in the
species?
closet for boas, buddy.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think every python guy has a little bit of a closet boa fetish in them. They just don't want to admit it. You know, and vice versa with boa guys. I'm sure there are boa guys that have a fetish with a python species of some sort.
Oh, for sure. And if you're a reptile lover, you should like it all.
Oh, well, I got a question for you real quick. Just a quick one. What's a species you're looking to get into that you haven't? Python or boa or whatever?
You know, weirdly enough, I've started dabbling with keeping outdoors a little bit. I've got some banana pectinata as well that I've been keeping outside. Some spiny-tailed iguanas and the tortoises I keep outside. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on some like radiated tortoises or some like Indian stars or something like that. The tortoises are fun, and I wouldn't mind having a little army of those guys cruising around or some pancakes. Snake-wise, on the short list, kind of want to get like some het stonewashed Bredlii or something like that. Just really clean-looking normals, basically. You know, like where you're just going to end up with a killer normals Bredlii. So, and try to keep those outdoors and try to do something like that and kind of play with that a little bit. Otherwise, kind of been looking at some collie-bred stuff. Wouldn't mind getting some, let's see here, some sublocks potentially, some Transpecos. Kind of shortlisted on those guys a little bit. You know, Marshall Mendez produced some cool ones, and I really like the Axanthic stuff in general. Otherwise, there's always things that always catch my eye. I don't know. Like I said, I was kind of looking at Angolans again. Diamonds are kind of on a short list a little bit. It changes a lot, honestly. I see some stuff where I'm like, that's cool. I wouldn't mind getting back in the carpets a little bit, honestly. But trying to figure out what to go for, I'm not sure yet. Something Axanthic-y looking, potentially.
Inlands, there you go.
I know. I was thinking that, or even some granite stuff. I like the granite stuff a little bit too.
Yeah.
And doing something like that. So yeah, I don't know. It floats around a lot. So like boas, I think I'm good. I really like this Bolivian pair. I may message Dave and be like, here's what I have. Does any of this make sense? If this doesn't make sense, what would be like, what am I missing? You know, what's a male or something that you'd go for? Do something like that and kind of plug a project more so than anything. I do need a nice male Woma. Like I'm looking for just like a complete knockout, which I've been looking for like 4 years now. I'm trying to find like a second, just really, really standout male that I can kind of plug and play with this a little bit. But it's hard to find them. And then you got to raise them for like, a few years. Some Antaresia as well.
Can't go wrong with Antaresia. You can keep a bunch of decent space, I know.
Like I
what
love
do you work with
Antilles,
now?
I just got the some Eastern Stimsoni.
Yeah,
So I've got like 1.3 of those. They're fun. They're pretty. They're from Nick and from Casey Lazick as well, directly from those guys. So I wouldn't mind some wheat belts, which I think you work with those, right?
Yeah, I got a group of them. Yeah, no, they're cool. I like the wheat belts. Wheat belts are hard to beat, man. They're some of the prettiest naturally occurring locality of any, probably most of the Antaresia.
That's what they look like. Just seeing photos of them.
Kind of like we were talking about earlier. There's an Australian guy. I think he's somewhere in Western Australia, I believe.
Yeah.
And he works with pygmy pythons, wheat belt stimsons. I think maybe a few other Australian species, but he's known for those. At least to me, I know him as for those two pygmy species. And he has some of the most knockout wheat belts I've ever seen. I mean, those things are. Nice. I mean, they rival any of the Antaresia morphs. Like I'm talking any of them. I mean, they were just stunning.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like dabble with that. And those, I think that's a project that could go far too, honestly. Because like Todd Case is producing some crazy ones, and like just like the Woma, start selectively breeding those things, man, and start, it's gonna take selectively breeding them, but you can produce probably some killer little babies.
Oh yeah.
So those guys, and then like I said, anthills just for being an anthill would be cool, but like red ones or something like that. So yeah, that I'm kind of all over the place. It's usually
I don't blame you. It's hard to just pick one.
It is, and I try to be selective in what I bring in and try to find stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't mind dabbling with some chondros again. Maybe. I don't even know where to jump in with that. It's such a scary thing to go into, honestly. It's like unless you just get babies and start from scratch. But then, I don't know. I'd maybe try to find some Arus, some like captive bred Arus or something like that, and start with those. Or some emerald trees as well. I don't know. I've got a little Amazon tree boa right now, like a solid red one that's for a friend that I need to send to Warren. And I'm like, this thing's pretty cool in itself. Like, this is a neat little boa.
You know what you might like then? You might like some annulateds. That's my favorite. That's my favorite boa species.
Yeah, Terry Burwell's got them. And the first time I saw them, I'm like, how are these things not more popular?
Especially when you're talking about
awesome.
the orange and red phase ones. Those things are, unreal looking.
Oh yeah, Michael Berger's down here too. He's down towards San
That's where I got most. That's where I got most of my stock from.
You have some too.
I keep bugging them for.
So look at you, Mr. Boa guy. You're talking.
I got everything, man.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I keep bugging him about the colored, the red phase ones, but he's like, I've already sold them, or I'm keeping them all back. I'm like, man, how many of these suckers do you keep back? Because he would post like a big group of a bunch of them on a log or something.
Right? Yeah, I know.
I was like, how many of these do you actually need? He just. Yeah.
When you're only one, all of them, I guess.
Yeah, you keeping them all, and then
those are, I think, highly underrated. I think Doomerals are highly underrated. Besides the price spike, like, I don't know, man. You see a nice Doomerals, I'm like, that is a killer boa. Those things are impressive, beautiful. I was at Replandia and they had Madagascan ground boas. They got a big female that's probably gravid right now too. And just seeing that thing in person, I'm like, that is an incredible looking boa too. Like really pretty.
Doomerals, the one species I added this year. I've been talking about Doomerals for over a decade, and I picked up 2 females so far this year. One's a juvenile, the other one's about 2-3 years old. Now I need a perfect male.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to find it yet. I haven't done any homework.
Yeah. I had some way back when that were like super peach color, like really nice, like, nice browns and like tans and stuff like that, but it was like all inlaid with peach, like all throughout the whole body and stuff. And I'm like, I just don't see those that often anymore.
Yeah, I remember it's hard to find one guy who specializes in Doomerals. You just see random litters here and there.
Right.
I can't think of one person who. I remember Derek Roddy had some real pretty ones years ago, like 10 years ago. I remember he had some nice ones.
Another great project is selectively breed.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be one if the community started growing. You probably see a lot more selective breeding, which I think would be awesome. But I think that's Woma community, same thing. Like, I just haven't heard of a guy that's really put like 20 years into the species, isolating certain things. Like, it's a very random community.
No, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're fucking done.
Yeah.
Well, I am a little greedy right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. First off, my eyes fuck. These things hurt my face.
Those things are awesome. I love them.
I love them too. But I gotta get these little rubber things.
Let's feel a little Elton John going on. I was jealous.
Yeah, I thought it went with the background. I sold one of your pictures off the Instagram page.
I was wondering where that picture came from. I'm like, how the hell do you have that? So that's a mural in North Austin that's still here, and it was the back wall of a pet store. I went in one time, and this guy just had a shitload of Burmese pythons. And I'm like, what is this place? I don't know if it was a drug front or something, and then it just disappeared. But the mural never has. That's been there for like 15 years. I just drove past it like not too long ago. I'm like, just a giant albino Burmese on the wall. It's incredible.
Yeah,
that's
I cut
cool.
off the top half. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to frame it in, but at least I got the albino Burmese python in there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, where that came from. That's funny.
Yeah, I stalked you lightly on Instagram until I found a proper background. I didn't know what my background was going to be, and I figured there'd be something on there to give me a direction. I can't get Junior on there every week, but hey, man, honestly, I really mean it. My post on Facebook today, sitting next to you at Bill's party was awesome. I loved the conversation, and then I never kept in touch. So, hopefully this will change.
It seems like it was yesterday. It
really does.
Time is like I can't even. Time flies by so fast right now. It's ridiculous.
Sadly, it does.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that. Like William liked to call me out before we got started. I waited the last minute. I let him make the call this week. But honestly,
it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. It worked out great. Yeah.
I had nothing going on randomly. I'm like, I don't know. I'm totally wide open tonight. This is perfect, man. I got nothing to do. I got to play baseball tomorrow, and that's it. I hardball game at 3 p.m, so I'll have plenty of time to hydrate and we good.
Nice. So at 40 years old, you're still playing hardball?
40. 50.
Was that here 40? What are you, 50?
50. 5-0 this year. Yeah, I turned 5-0 in December. Yeah,
Well, you
we
were
play.
an ugly 40 this whole time.
Yeah. No, I'm just a damn good-looking 50-year-old. Yeah, I play in a Sandlot baseball league. So
That's awesome.
it's full 9 innings, like fucking fast pitch hardball. It's steal the bases, run 90-foot bases, steal the bases and shit. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's a good time. I mean, you get some ballers out there, some old timers and shit, and yeah, it's a blast. We're sponsored by Awesome Beer Works, so we just have like a cooler beer, and usually someone else we're playing against. Sponsored by another brewery, so it's just like last time the catcher's out there and he like brings a beer out and puts it down and puts a cigarette on the beer can. And he gets down there and catches like a full inning, in like full catcher's gear and shit. He's like pulling a drag through the catcher's mask. It's a blast. It's a good time.
No, So I very rarely anymore, but occasionally I get calls to play hockey still. And I think I turn, what am I? I think I'm 40. I don't think I'm 41 yet. What year is it? No, I'm 41 this year.
Yeah. Nice.
But long story short, I got a tournament up in Detroit the same weekend as the Schaumburg show, first weekend of August.
Yeah.
I play goalie. Man, I got no flexibility anymore, man. I used to be able to
just wait. It gets way worse, dude. This is a hard decade. Stay in shape is my only advice to you. Not even in shape. Just like do anything. Like I did it.
I do things.
Yeah, I know. Keep doing it because dude, my God, I was 40 and I was still like not a rock star, but I was like I could still just get by not doing shit and be okay. Man, it gets hard towards like in the next decade for sure. I
played a hockey tournament when I was 39 in July. Then I played one in October when I was 40, and now I'm going to play one just before I turn 41. So I'm good for like one a year.
Yeah.
When I was 39 to 40, bro, completely different like feel. Like when I was 39, I could kind of still do splits, kind of go across on one-timers. I felt good. At 40, I couldn't do shit. Like my flexibility, I popped my hamstring in like the very first game. Like my whole body just forgot how to play hockey.
It's rough.
It's nice to.
That's a rough. I mean, that's a rough. Yeah, I mean that's. You're also doing something most bodies should not be doing in the first place.
No, probably not.
So you're playing goalie for in hockey. I mean, you're like on skates on ice, also going like weird angles and everything else.
I don't know if this makes it worse. I'm actually a roller hockey player. Like I could never do the ice thing because I was too poor to buy goalie equipment as a kid. But I could afford those Milek plastic pads.
Yeah.
But no, I've always been roller, but I'm a fucking all-star in roller. I've played some NHL players. Of course, they score on me sometimes. But
but
roller is
awesome.
Roller is it's very unforgiving because you don't slide. Like everything is just flexibility, spreading it out.
Yeah.
It's a harder game. I bet. Not for bitches. Yeah.
I grew up playing hockey out on the lakes in Wisconsin. We just plowed a lake, and I was a skate guard. I had this red jacket that guard on the back. Yep. So I was a skate guard, so we'd skate around, just make sure everybody was all right. And then we'd be like, all right, closing her up. And we'd kick everybody out and then just flip the lights back on. We had boards down there. We'd just skate on the ice and play hockey like for hours until like midnight. Like we would play for like 3 hours and shut her down and such. And it was fun. It was a good time.
Favorite sport so far, man. I've played a lot of sports in my life. It's the one that I was always the best at, so I've liked it the most.
Heck yeah.
But hey, I really mean it though. Hopefully sometime I'll get to Southern Texas. I've always wanted to visit Austin. It's a beautiful town. I've just never made it there yet.
Let me know anytime. We're always around. We're always around. We're always around. So anytime, keep us posted.
I'll take advantage of that. But you have to give me a place to sleep though, just for the record.
We have an extra bedroom.
Okay. I'm in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got a guest room. You'll be okay. It's got an incubator in there.
You'll be okay too, just so you know.
I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about you. You've never touched me before.
No, you're too old for me, buddy.
That's right. Damn. I agree. Awesome. William, it was great chatting with you too, man. Definitely love everything you do, man. It's fun. Yeah. I don't know, man. You post pictures. I'm like, God damn. That's
Same with you,
great
man.
stuff,
Every time I see your Woma pythons, you used to do the rough scales, Angolans, I used to admire seeing all your stuff back in the day when you made
I'll
or hatched
build it all back up
stuff.
eventually. We had to renovate our kitchen and get the house done. I got the happy wife right now, so now it's like, all right, sweet. Now I need to reinvest some of these 20 Womas into some other stuff. You know, it was nice when I had the rough scale. I had the Ackies, man. They bred like crazy, and they funded like the rough scales, and the rough scales funded like everything else. And then now it's like got to dump a bunch of cash to go do the house and everything. So I'm like, all right, time to reinvest in here and start building some stuff up. So I'm starting to go pick some fun animals out.
Right,
that's awesome.
So
I love that.
awesome, man.
If you ever make it to Missouri, man,
Dude, I would love to. Honestly,
visit.
I want to go fishing.
I'd love to take you fishing,
like
buddy.
No bullshit. Like I grew up fishing in Wisconsin all the time, dude, and I don't fish down here at all because it's just.
That's cool. We'll meet
Texas,
you and William's dad. We'll go fishing sometime.
All right, let's do it, William's dad.
You're gonna leave me out?
No, those pictures. Whenever you're putting pictures up, I'm like, God, man, that looks perfect.
Well,
like you and Ike.
Plan an April trip. Early April, come out here. We'll have trout. We'll go out herping, man. We'll go out to William's place. Find time in April someday. Come visit.
April's perfect for me, actually. That'd be perfect. Yeah, man. Let's work on it.
Oh, you'll love it, man. We'll do everything you can possibly imagine, man. I'll put you on. We'll get you a big trout, and we'll get you a big coach whip.
Awesome.
What about
Dave?
Can you take me to a pygmy spot? I need to see pygmy rattlers. I'm having like a real itch to find some pygmies.
That's what I would add. I would add some pygmies to this collection. That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I don't need to add any. If I can just find some, I'd be happy with that.
I've got a spot that's good all summer, Will. When you want to come pygmies, just let me know. We'll go road cruising for them.
All right, there we go.
That would be fun. That would be cool. I'd like to see that.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Hard to see.
Nice.
Hard to see.
Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine. You're probably hard to hear.
Like finding an Antaresia on the floor.
Yeah,
right.
Teeny, but again,
nice. All right,
I
guys.
really appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. It's always
keep on doing the Lord's work, guys. You're doing great.
Right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, whoever stuck around this long, you guys know the routine. Like and subscribe, and Pomona, guys, a week away. I can't fucking wait. So, till next one.
Sounds good. See y'all.
See you guys.
Later, guys.